3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
We need a reset for Maggie. We desperately need something.
Laura said it's okay, Maggie. It'll all be okay. You don't know that, Laura.
Yeah.
I love you, but you don't know that.
No,
You know Maggie's got off the deep end when she's yelling at the widow.
No. Laura's perceptive. Today is more of an intervention than a radio show.
No.
Deep breath.
She's doing breathing exercises.
I want a camera on Maggie when Drew Gilbert hits a grand slam to win in the divisional round, and I just want to be there and say, I told you.
7 years.
Yeah. In the year 2030, when I renounce my Mets fandom for good. I'm just kidding. I can't quit you.
They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Live from the place show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, and of course, that free Odyssey app, and on YouTube as well. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. I'm Zach Gelb, in for Maggie and Andrew. And you could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. Stu Kovacs, Michael Samter along the other way. Quincy Enunwa, the former Jet wide receiver, going to stop by in about an hour 40 from now. Jansen, the former offensive lineman in the NFL, also played his college ball at Michigan, will stop by at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. I need to start the show today with the Dalvin Cook news. After much anticipation, much drama, and we're waiting to see where Dalvin Cook will go. And for a while, I thought that Aaron Rodgers definitely wanted Dalvin Cook. And I said this from the moment he was released, from people that I talked to, Aaron Rodgers is going to recruit Dalvin Cook. The question became, did Dalvin Cook want the Jets? And I did think for a bit that he was using the Jets as leverage to land in Miami. Miami did not go to the salary that the Jets were willing to go to. And after all the waiting, boom, Dalvin Cook winds up with the Jets. And if you're a Jet fan today, this just continues the offseason of really greatness for you, where for the first time in forever, you could go into a season and dream big. You look at this Jets team, Aaron Rodgers, your soon-to-be Hall of Fame quarterback. You got Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall cooking up some magic at the running back position. You have the reigning offensive and defensive rookies of the year in Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. And oh yeah, by the way, you have an elite defense. The expectations for the Jets should be sky high. And depending on how far the Jets will go this year is all based off of one unit. And it's a unit that never gets any respect. It's a unit that usually only gets blame, but it's the most essential part to a football team. And that's the big boys up front. Right? How many times you hear the cliche, the battle in the trenches? The only concern I have about the Jets entering this season is, will their offensive line be good enough? Because if that offensive line is good enough, this is a Jets team that can accomplish anything this year. And I was skeptical for a while calling them a Super Bowl contender. And I'm really strict in how many teams I allow into that Super Bowl contending conversation. And I have the Bills in there, the Bengals in there, the Chiefs in there, the Eagles in there, and the 49ers in there. The Jets are in that conversation now. And if you're a Jets fan, you should be thrilled. And it may not work out, but at least you could go into a season and not be scouting the first round of quarterbacks for next year, or be wondering if your team's even going to be in it in Thanksgiving or by Christmas time. Because I don't know what the Jets are going to accomplish this year, but if you tell me they're going to win the AFC East, I can't say you're wrong. If you tell me they're going to be in an AFC championship game, I can't tell you you're crazy. And even though Aaron Rodgers, in an easier situation in Green Bay and in an easier conference in the NFC, has come up short a bunch in the postseason, of recent memory when he had the number one seed twice and lost to the Bucs, lost to the 49ers at Lambeau Field. If you tell me that the Jets and Aaron Rodgers are in the Super Bowl this year, I'm not going to say it. But any other year, if you tell me the Jets are going to be in the Super Bowl, I would shoot you down. I can't do it right now. Because you look at this Jets team, they should be a successful team this year. And there's many different ways how to justify or how to evaluate and determine success. For some Jets fans, it may just be getting to an AFC championship game. For other Jets fans, it may be winning division. Or for a lot of Jets fans, it's winning a Super Bowl, because you haven't done that since Joe Willie Namath made the guarantee back in 1969. So when you evaluate this team, and this is coming from a Patriot fan, there's not a lot of things where you go, I don't like this about the Jets. I don't love this about the Jets. And the only two that I could really think of is the offensive line, which is a major question mark. And then also, is this head football coach Robert Saleh the real deal? And the last 2 years, he hasn't had any expectations. He seems to be a player coach. The players seem to really like him. But if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, Robert Saleh will be gone. He won't be the coach next season. But I would be shocked. And sometimes, right, you get caught up in these stories and these teams that come about, and they kind of form these all-star teams, and they usually don't meet expectations. But for bare minimum, and once again, I don't know how far the Jets take it this year. I still probably think it will be the divisional round where they'll get in the postseason as a wild card team. They'll win a playoff game, and then they'll lose in the divisional round to a Kansas City, to a Cincinnati, whoever it may be. But bare minimum, I would be shocked if the Jets aren't in the playoffs this year. And that's in a loaded AFC. Just look at their division. Fighting for that one spot in the AFC East, you have Buffalo, who has won the division the last 3 years. You have the Miami Dolphins, who all they need is Tua Tagovailoa to stay healthy. You have the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. You're splitting hairs between all three of those teams. The Dolphins, as I said, their biggest concern is Tua. The Bills, their biggest concern is will Von Miller be healthy? And can that defense make the timely stop? And then for the Jets, it's once again that offensive line. But look how close those teams are just inside the AFC East. Then you get out of the AFC East. In the AFC North, you have a great Bengals team. You have an exciting Ravens team with Lamar Jackson. Would anyone be surprised if the Browns or the Steelers make the playoffs this year? I wouldn't be. Then you see the AFC South. The Jaguars are a really good young up-and-coming team that were in the division round last year. And then in the AFC West, you have the standard in the year of 2023 of Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce with the Kansas City. How about those Chiefs? But then also in that division, Chargers are loaded with talent. Can Russ bounce back with the Denver Broncos? We're getting ready, as it's the 15th day of August in the year of 2023, to embark on one of the more entertaining years that we're ever going to see out of the NFL just inside the AFC. And what makes this so fun is on paper, it's going to be really tough to find out and see who finds a way to get to those final 7 teams where you have your 4 division winners and then your 3 wild card teams. Where then you look at the NFC, it's a complete antithesis. In the NFC, it's, all right, the Eagles are great. 49ers are great, but what is Brock Purdy going to be this year? Will Trey Lance or Sam Darnold ever see the field? And then after that, I can't trust the Cowboys. I'll trust the Cowboys to win 10, 11, 12 games, but I can't trust them in a postseason game. Is this the Lions' year? How much are the Vikings going to regress? Who's going to find a way to get to the top of the crappy NFC South? And I like Seattle. I think Seattle could be the 3rd best team in the NFC, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you Geno Smith is playing in the Super Bowl this year. So look how much of a struggle it is to find the 7 teams in the NFC. And just giving you names, because there's not a lot of appealing options. In the AFC, it's a struggle to get to 7 because of, on paper, how great these teams are. But entering this season, there's no doubt about it. The biggest storyline entering the 2023 NFL season are the Jets, Jets. And who would have ever thought that? But Aaron Rodgers picks that team. You bring in Dalvin Cook. You had a team last year that won 7 games that had a kick-ass defense, but their offense gave you nothing. And now there are high expectations for the Jets. If you're a Jets fan, you got to thank your general manager, Joe Douglas. You really got to thank Aaron Rodgers from coming out of the darkness retreat and saying, I want to go to the New York Jets. You know, for the Jets to land a star quarterback, I guess it's only fitting that the quarterback had to enter a dark cave to then come out of that dark cave and say, I want to be a part of the New York Jets. But you look at the team that they have assembled, they're right there. I'm not telling you they're Kansas City. I'm not telling you they're Cincinnati. You got to prove it. But there's not a lot of reasons to doubt the Jets. And Samter, you've been a Jets fan your entire life. They should probably pay for your therapy bills for rooting for this team. But you look at this team, and I'm just curious, the Jet fan entering this season. Because some Jet fans will be like, hey, I'm embracing the expectations. We've never been in this spot in my lifetime. We want to be in the penthouse. I'm expected to be at the penthouse at the end of the year. Or there's the Jet fan that goes, it's all fine and dandy now. It's all good right now, but just wait. At one point, we'll be tweeting out, just end the season, same old Jets. Where are you when Michael Samter wakes up this morning? You see the Dalvin Cook news. You know Dalvin Cook last night agreed to go to the Jets. Breece Hall is now off the is back and is going to be practicing off the PUP list, I believe. So there are the makings of a team that looks to be really good. But there's one thing to look like you're going to be really good, and there's another thing to do that on a football field. So on a scale of 1 to 10, Samter, 1, same old Jets. They're going to rip your heart out. They're going to ruin your life this year, and you're going to be walking around the CBS Sports Radio newsroom with a lot of egg on your face. Or 10, they're going to win the bleeping Super Bowl. Where is Michael Samter at?
I'm like a 6, right? I'm looking at like 10, 11 wins, divisional round, maybe AFC Championship game, but I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl. But I also don't think that they're going to bleep the bed. I think they're going to be really good. I mean, you look at the defense. Not only is the defense stacked just from every single position, they're deep, right? Jermaine Johnson is not even a starter. Will McDonald, their first-round pick, is killing it so far in the preseason. State, yeah. And he's like their third string on that side of the ball. Their defensive secondary is great. Their special teams are good. You mentioned the offensive line, and of course, that is a huge question mark, especially with Mekhi Becton. But the other question mark is the wide receivers. I understand Garrett Wilson is a legit number one, potential superstar in the making.
He had 1,100 yards last year with no quarterback.
Yes. He is a true, legit Justin Jefferson level potential number one wide receiver.
Okay.
Then you've got Corey Davis, Alan Lazard, Mecole Hardman, and Randall Cobb. None of those guys have had 1,000 yards in like a decade, right? They haven't had above 600 yards ever, basically. Like, Mecole Hardman has done nothing. Alan Lazard has done nothing. Corey Davis, after that one good year with the Titans, has done nothing. So, like, they're putting a lot of expectations on Garrett Wilson. And I understand that, a guy like Aaron Rodgers makes receivers good, but, like, he only could do so much with Alan Lazard. Randall Cobb is 33. Mecole Hardman's a good speed guy, but, like, you're not relying on Mecole Hardman or Charles Irvin. Jason Brownlee, an unrestricted free agent for a draftee, looks really good in camp, but you're not relying on him. There's a lot on Garrett Wilson. And if Garrett Wilson gets doubled or, God forbid, gets hurt, I think the Jets' offense is a lot more vulnerable than people think it is based on both the offensive line and the wide receiver group.
No question. You lose Garrett Wilson.
They got a lot of number 3 receivers, no number 2s.
That star presence does go away at the wide receiver position, but Alan Lazard with Aaron Rodgers is a number 2 wide receiver. He did that
No, he's not.
Yes, he did. He did it in Green Bay with Devontae Adams. And last year...
Yeah, he was the worst number 2 receiver in the NFL.
No, that's not true. He put up 800 yards last year and played in 15 games for a team where Aaron Rodgers was hurt last year.
Right.
I'm telling you, Alan Lazard...
But he was the number 1 last year.
But here's what you're missing. He has the trust of Aaron Rodgers. And it doesn't matter. Sure. It does not matter in terms of who your wide receivers are. It's who Aaron Rodgers trusts. And I'll welcome you into football when you actually have a great quarterback. If the quarterback is that great, he finds a way to make everyone around him better. There was a guy, you may have heard of him, who's now retired, Tom Brady. Outside of Randy Moss, I'm talking about just receivers, not tight ends, who were the great wide receivers that he had? He made Wes Welker. He made Julian Edelman. We saw what Brady was able to do with Troy Brown, Danny Amendola. So it comes down to 2 things this year. What does the offensive line do? And then can Aaron Rodgers stay healthy and take that next step in where for so many years it's Rodgers has 1 Super Bowl. But is he going to get that second? Is he going to get to a second Super Bowl? And for some years in Green Bay, you could blame the defense. You could blame the special teams. You could blame the coaching. You could blame the front office. But the last 2 times Rodgers had a legit shot. NFC title game, he bleeped the bed at home. His offense was dreadful. And then in the division round, up against the 49ers, touchdown right out of the gate, and then nothing after that. Ultimately, I don't want to hear about the wide receivers. Oh, they may not have enough. You have Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers has the time, that should be enough, bare minimum, to have you playing in the divisional round weekend when we get into January. Stu, so Samter, what would you say? You're at a 6.5? Is that correct?
6.5 sounds about right.
Which I think that's fair for something that's been so tortured for so many years. A 6.5 is pretty damn optimistic. Stu, you're a Raiders fan. You know what it's like where your team acquires someone and you're told the team's going to be wonderful and then they end up being dreadful. The Raiders now are more of a circus than the Jets, so give credit to the Jets for getting out of the clown show. The Raiders are sitting there with the Indianapolis Colts. The Commanders are now out of the clown show because no longer Daniel Snyder's there. There's a few dysfunctional organizations around the league. Unfortunately, your team is one. The Cardinals is a great one. When you having a good eye for dysfunction, and a good eye for false hope. 1 to 10, where's your confidence with the Jets?
I'd say it's about 7.5. I think it's pretty high. I think they'll definitely make the playoffs. I think they're definitely a 10-win team. Are they a 11 or 12-win team, and are they a Super Bowl contender? I think they're a little short of that. Obviously, you have the big three teams in the AFC. I think they're just a peg under those three, the Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs. But they're right there, and if they get hot at the right time and Rodgers stays healthy, I think they can make a run at the AFC Championship. But I think they're just a titch under that.
And by the way, we say hello to the Weedos and the Purple Drinkers in the YouTube chat. And also, you guys could be more creativity. You could have some more creativity if you're in the chat today. Like, oh, Zach clearly showing why he has for a face for radio. Like, come on. Can you make a joke that's actually in the year of 2023?
I know. I've been saying that for 20 years.
Yeah, it's weak. It's lame. Like, you keep on using the same joke. You end up not being funny anymore. People stop laughing and, oh, he doesn't have a hat on, so he's not hiding that ugly mug today. Guys, you're going to have to say a lot more to make me upset. And usually, knowing what the Weedos and Purple Drinkers use into their system, you would think when they have some performance-enhancing substances, they'd be a little bit more creative than that. We'll take a break here. Zach Gelb in for Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, a story that was once great is now starting to get disappointing. We'll talk about it when we return.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. Minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. I think we all remember and love the movie The Blind Side. And I don't know what to make out of this because it's a he said, she said type of situation right now. But the fact that we're in this situation is just really deflating because there's always a good story. There's always a good movie. And then when you really like that movie or you like that story, especially when it was at the time presented to be a heartwarming story, you go, okay, in a world that's filled with so much hate and so much, so many bad people and cruel people, and we usually highlight the negative rather than talk about the positive, The Blind Side was perceived to be this unbelievable, wonderful story. And maybe just taking the story for the way that it was presented in Hollywood, maybe we were wrong for that. But to see this article that came out yesterday that Michael Oher and his legal team's petitioning a court to end the conservatorship of Sean and Leanne Toohey, where he's claiming he was tricked into signing this and he thought he'd be like a full-time family member and he was never actually adopted. The whole thing now just makes you say, I don't know how to feel about this story. And it takes away from the movie, it takes away from how you look at just both sides of the story. So pretty much Michael Oher is saying he never made a dime off the movie, and Michael Oher is then claiming, and his legal team is claiming, that the Toohey family, they did this conservatorship just to make sure that they got their chunk of the pie, and their other children, the SJ, and then I forget the name of the girl in the movie, the daughter, that she got money too. So that's where we're at right now. And the whole thing just stinks because I saw that Sean Toohey, the father, not SJ, the son, we'll play some audio from him in just a bit. He was on with Barstool yesterday. He goes, my finances are well documented. You could see anything that has happened in the past. And I guess he sold this company for a lot of money. He goes, I don't need any money. And I'm paraphrasing here with what he told one publication. I didn't need any money off this movie. So that's what's being said. That is what is out there. And there's claims like everyone in the Toohey family but Oher made like $200-something thousand, and then a little under 3% in residuals from the movie, and Michael Oher got nothing. I was watching a Barstool interview yesterday where SJ said that at like most he probably got like $40,000 from the movie or $60,000 from the movie. So there's one side in the Michael Oher side that is, I got tricked. I was never adopted actually by the family, and I found this out in February of 2023. And then there's the other side, yeah, we didn't make this money that Michael was saying that we made. We love Michael. And we explained to him at the time to sign this conservatorship because of the fact that the NCAA, if he wanted to go to Ole Miss, they didn't like the fact that Michael Oher was living with us because even though it's a little Hollywood in the movie, how highly touted he was, and then it's, a family with Ole Miss ties just brings in Michael Oher into their family, and it's, okay, what's actually going on, and did they just do this to make sure that he would end up going to Ole Miss? So the entire thing, where it should be just very simple, it's now in a gray area where I don't know what to believe. And there's probably some truths being told from Michael Oher's side. There's also probably some truths being told by the Tui side. And then maybe there's some misunderstandings. I don't want to call them lies, but maybe it wasn't in the Tui side of it as clearly thought out as it was to Michael, and vice versa. So this is one of those stories where I think it's easy today to stand up and go, shame on the Tui family. You know, they lied to us all just so they could make money off of Michael Oher. I don't know who to believe in this case. And when you further delve into it, something that's just peculiar to me is this stuff comes out right when Michael Oher was at CBS Sports Radio last week with DA, David Amendola, when he's filling in for Jim Rome on The Jungle. And he's now has a book out. So is this being done in terms of you want to get more publicity towards your book? Like, I don't know. And the family, like recently, I guess they lost contact from my understanding of the situation with what SJ said, but it's not as if they haven't had contact in a really long time. So the reaction that I have to this when you go through both sides of it and you start to get some of the information that's out there is this whole situation now. It's unfortunate, and maybe this is selfish when I say this, because I love the movie. I love the story. And we've heard Michael Oher before talk poorly about the movie and didn't like the way that he was portrayed and bring up a lot of valid points. And some of it obviously gets Hollywood up, right? And gets romanticized for Hollywood and all that. So you always knew that there was something that wasn't always the truth. But when you found out that he wasn't really actually adopted by the family, that goes... It's almost as if you're being told something was so great and then you find out it wasn't and it ended up being an entire lie. And that's the part, as someone that loved the movie and someone that loved the story, where you go, how many more times in this world do you get told something's great? Do you get told something is lovely and wonderful? And then throughout the years, you find out that it is the complete opposite here. Samter, how do you react to this? Because the whole thing, it's unfortunate. And if I had to pick a side, I would probably believe Michael Oher more than the Tui family. But really, selfishly, I just go, this just stinks.
Yeah, I mean, you want to err on the side of caution, but you do tend to just kind of go with Oher. And the facts are, in this case, that he wasn't adopted as a child, and it was a conservatorship, so it does look bad for the family. But I'm sure that they probably meant, their intentions were good. Maybe they didn't know the best way to do it, or maybe they did have nefarious intentions. But it does kind of sour a good story. And I go back and I was, kind of watching clips from the movie just to kind of go through it. And I was looking over old quotes from Michael Oher about how he was portrayed. And he really was portrayed as, like, someone who had, like, disabilities or mentally, slow.
Someone that couldn't read or write.
They really portrayed him in a very negative light.
And I think he said this with DA. He was doing, like, school plays when he was in the second grade.
Yeah.
So clearly he could read and write.
For sure. And so he even said, I mean, I heard past interviews from him saying that it impacted how NFL teams viewed him, how they looked at him as a player, and that it may have hurt his career with the movie. So if those things are true, and that they took creative license with his life, with his upbringing, with his story, and they took creative license with it and made him look worse in the movie to make the family look better, and on top of that, he got no money out of the movie whatsoever either, that to me just feels wrong on so many levels. Whether they were malicious or not, it sounds to me that A, they made him look bad in the movie, they made the family look good in the movie, and C, he's not getting any money.
Well, did they really make him look bad in the movie? In terms of, it ended up being a good story. I get it.
A good story, but it more felt like a good story for what the family was doing for him, as opposed to him being the star athlete.
Which he was.
who is also bringing something to this family as well. And potentially, if what some of the allegations or some of the thoughts might be in the rumors that maybe they brought him on specifically just to go to Ole Miss, maybe it was a recruiting thing, we don't know. But they made the movie out to be this feel-good story, but it focused on the family. Sandra Bullock got all the acclaim for that, not the actor who played Michael Oher. And again, the way they made him, the way they portrayed him, it was almost like
it's also Sandra Bullock, let's be real.
I mean, it is Sandra Bullock.
When she's walking across that football field, of course she's going to get all the fame and the notoriety from that movie.
Yeah, I'll watch anything Sandra Bullock, I'll be honest.
Thanks. And the movie, I know it's catered to a lot of people. When you have a football movie, a lot of men are going to watch it. And when you have Sandra Bullock playing the role of the mother, Leanne Toohey,
and she was incredible. She played the role very well. But again, like, if it was more accurate, if it was accurate, but when Michael Oher tells a story about how he doesn't like how he was portrayed,
you have to respect that.
And not just respect it,
because he lived it.
Yes. And if you're going to make him look bad, at least give him some money on the back end. If you're going to make him look bad and not give him any money for how he's being portrayed, that to me is just unconscionable.
And also, I saw SJ the other day on Barstool said, I hope Mike gets all the money that he wants. And he was explaining something. It didn't really make sense where, like, their like, I hate to say their family because they were a family. You know, I don't know where they're going to go from this when you get into the litigious world. But it was almost as the four Tuohys, through charity or something from the movie, got $200,000. And then Michael Oher was also offered that same $200,000. And it was because he was playing. He goes, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with any of the money from the movie right now. So I don't know whatever happened to that money. But that was one of those things where yesterday I watched the full Barstool interview with SJ. And I was like, what he's saying, and I know it's covered in legal lingo right now, so who knows what is true. I didn't walk away from that interview that SJ did and had any clarity, where at least you understand somewhat of the Oher side, where it was when SJ was speaking, there was no clarity, and then the father was like, all my records are public. go check it out, and there won't be a single lie coming from me. And if you think I was making money off one of my kids, you're just absolutely crazy. That's what the father pretty much said yesterday. Let's play some of these cuts. This is SJ Toohey. That's in the movie, the little boy. Now he's, 30 years old or something like that. Here's him on Barstool yesterday talking about his relationship with Oher and thoughts on the petition that was filed yesterday.
I loved Mike at 16. I love Mike at now he's 37, and I love him at 67. So I'll be mad at him. But if he says he learned that in February, I find that hard to believe. I was curious today randomly to go back to look at our family group texts and text to see what things have been said. And there were things back in 2020, 2021 that were like, if you guys give me this much, then I won't go public with things.
Well, that's an interesting thing. If you give me this much, I won't go public with things. So there's a little bit fight back from the Toohey family. Here is SJ Toohey on the feud with Michael Oher.
I get it why he's mad. I completely understand. It stinks that it'll play on a very public stage. But I think there was 16 years of, or how long it's been, but of people that took positive things from the movie. There'll be some now 16 years of things that people think negative of it. That part sucks, but like, oh well.
And here is SJ Toohey, another one for Barstool Sports. He wants Oher to get paid for The Blind Side.
The first lawsuit that he's pissed about that he didn't get it, I'm like, man, I hope you win every dollar that you get. That's great crap, because then I can do the same thing. The same thing these writers and actors are pissed about now. It's not crazy different. He wants more royalties and wants the same. I mean, the Hollywood is going to screw people out of their deal, so I was like all for it initially. And still am, man. I hope he gets everything that's entitled to him legally.
And then finally, how much SJ Toohey made from The Blind Side?
I made like 60, 70 grand over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. It comes in like the first year was like a $14,000 check, and then it was like an 8 and 7 and whatever, so on and so forth down. That math didn't add up, but it started off a little higher and then it went down.
No, if that's true that he made $60,000 or $70,000 and Michael Oher made nothing, why did Michael Oher make nothing? And if it's because the Toohey family hid that money from him, that's as lame as it gets. If it's because he had no interest in making the money until now because he was focused on his football career, well, then why didn't you have someone on your team handle that at the time? So there's something that we're not being told here. I do think part of what the Toohey family is probably saying is true, and part of what Michael Oher is saying is true. If I had to pick one side over the other, I would lean Michael Oher. And for people that have no clue what we're talking about, because I haven't been familiar with the term until, it was with Britney Spears, I'm pretty sure, like a year ago. A conservatorship is a legal appointment allowing a party to handle the financial and personal affairs of another. So just to get that out there. And I say that word very quickly because that is a tongue twister and a difficult word to say, especially when you're hosting a radio show.
That was impressive.
Yeah, I would not say it 10 times fast because I would definitely mess it up and it would be awful and I would just be stumbling all over my words. All righty. Talk about stumbling all over his words. No, I'm just kidding. Marco looked at me with a big smile right there.
Sounds right. I can take it.
Do you have any opinion here on this whole blindside story?
Look, I was actually looking stuff up. I want to see a little bit more, but right off the face of it, a conservatorship for an 18-year-old in that situation, to me, just smells wrong. Completely smells wrong. It doesn't make any sense. And the fact that the first thing that the father, I forget, Sean, I think it was, said was, well, we couldn't legally adopt him at 18. Nonsense. Yes, you can in Tennessee. So the idea that they looked up everything, but that part they missed, no, you didn't miss that. You did that on purpose. Now, the question is why?
And he said in one article, just to be fair, it was the NCAA did not like that Michael was living with them.
Then you adopt him.
And that's why he did it.
And that's why you adopt him. Mm-hmm. Because adoption means you're part of the family. Conservatorship is now I'm in control of you. Those are two totally different things. And the idea that, even that it passed through, and that's obviously because Michael Oher was unaware, and that he's saying that he was tricked into the idea of it. Those conservatorships are very, very, very difficult to overturn. Just some of the stuff that I have read on. That's a difficult proposition where you're explaining to me, because we said we couldn't adopt him, which legally you could have. So if you spoke to a lawyer, they would have told you that. And then that was the best option? No, it wasn't. There's an ulterior motive. Now it's a question of what exactly and how far you were going, but there's an ulterior motive. That's why this whole thing smells.
Zach Gelb for Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a break. We will come on back. And Patrick Mahomes is on his quest for 7 rings. We will get to that conversation next. How many is he going to wind up getting? I'll give you my thoughts. Standing by the latest CBS Sports Radio update. You just heard his voice. El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And Zach, we're sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive makes bundling easy and affordable. Get a multi-policy discount by combining your motorcycle, RV, boat, ATV, and more. All your protection in one place. Bundle and save at Progressive.com. Colts not wasting any more time in a competition with Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew. Indy has announced their starter, tapping the Florida rookie and the fourth overall pick, who discussed how he got the news.
It was after we finished everything yesterday. He called me back in the office and talked to me. We talked for about like 2 hours. The 2 hours wasn't even about me being QB1. He just told me that like 3 minutes, and we just started talking about life and stuff, just trying to build connections and relationship more. But like I said, I'm thankful and I appreciate it.
Elsewhere, Jets activated Breece Hall off the PUP list, last year's leading rusher, back after tearing his ACL Week 7. Now he joins newcomer Dalvin Cook in the backfield. Robert Saleh enjoying all the options he now holds.
As a coach, as a defensive coach, I'll just sit there and just say, God, you got Breece and Michael and him, and you got 2 of those guys in the backfield, and it's, you just got, there's a lot of different things that you can do to create a bunch of headaches for defensive coaches, and then, he's not a trick back either. You can turn around, hand him the ball, and he can run downhill, and he's done it for a long time.
I'm Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio.
'You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD, veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's player is Bears fourth-year linebacker Terrell Lewis. In Saturday's 23-17 preseason win over the Titans, Lewis had 2 sacks and an additional tackle for a loss. The Bears combined to sack Malik Willis and Will Levis. What a wonderful duo at quarterback there. They combined 8 times and forced Tennessee into 4 turnovers. So Patrick Mahomes was talking about how impressive, right? Tom Brady going to 10 Super Bowls and winning 7 championships is, and he's going to try his best to strive to get to that number 7 or as close as he'll be able to. So right away, a lot of the other national shows around our country, they start in with some of the worst radio, some of the worst television ever. And this annoys me all the time. There is nothing more that I hate than the LeBron against Jordan debate, because it's so stupid. Because here's what happens. Some guy will call in from Chicago. Jordan's the greatest thing ever. LeBron sucks. And then a guy from Cleveland will call in. LeBron's the GOAT. Jordan sucks. You have to demean the other person to make the case for your guy. But that's what some of the national media has turned into, where it's, let's just get calls because all calls are great, right? And let's just do an hour of Jordan up against LeBron. It's stupid. So we're already starting where the GOAT gets overused a lot. It was Brandon Miller, remember, at the NBA draft, who said Paul George is his GOAT? There's a difference, Brandon. Let me just explain this to you. There's a difference in who is your favorite player and who's the greatest player of all time. There's a big difference. Paul George, can he win a championship? Can he get to an NBA Finals before you have Brandon Miller, of all people, saying he's his GOAT? You can say he's your favorite player. I can't crush you for that. But when you say he's the GOAT, stop it with that nonsense, because that's what it is. So Tom Brady, for years, right, in the NFL, the GOAT was Joe Montana. And in most people's eyes, unless if you're just a jealous hater or a big-time 49ers fan, Tom Brady has surpassed Joe Montana. And if you ask most people today who's the GOAT in the history of the NFL, it's Tom Brady. Tom Brady hasn't even been retired for a season yet. And you have people already making the case that Patrick Mahomes is going to be the GOAT. Can we just let it breathe for a little bit? Like, what happens next? Bryce Young wins Rookie of the Year this year, and people start to say that he's going to be the GOAT? Not everyone has to be thrown into the GOAT conversation yet. And don't get me wrong. Patrick Mahomes is on a trajectory for an all-time great career. He could retire tomorrow, and some people would say, oh, didn't play enough years to make the Hall of Fame. But the guy's already won 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. It would be tough to keep Patrick Mahomes out of the Hall of Fame if he retired tomorrow, if he just didn't want to play anymore. So what Mahomes is doing is he's the next face of the league since Brady's out, and has taken the league by storm, and we're going to see how many he could find a way to win. And I would probably say right now, Mahomes already has 2. I don't know how many more years he's going to play. I know quarterbacks take fewer hits now, but Mahomes has had some injuries, nothing that's really knocked him out for too long. But at this rate, with already having 2, I would anticipate bare minimum, Mahomes is going to win 3 more rings. I would say right now, I would say 5 is a fair number. Because you got to remember, Mahomes is a standard. Mahomes is what everyone's chasing right now. They just lost Tyreek Hill, and he did a Brady-like thing where you lose a great player and you just shut everybody up and you go on out on the football field and you win. When everyone's starting to doubt you, when everyone's starting to say, oh, maybe they're not going to become a dynasty. So Mahomes getting this ring this year was enormous. But eventually, you're going to see a major shift in Kansas City. Andy Reid's not getting any younger. I don't think he's close to retiring, but eventually Mahomes is going to play in the NFL without Andy Reid. Travis Kelce looks like he's 26 right now, but he's in his 30s. Let's say Travis Kelce plays another 3 to 4 really great seasons, and then there's going to be life in Kansas City without Travis Kelce. So I just want to see what that second wave of Mahomes looks like, where there's no doubting Mahomes, but it's who else excels, who else is your breakout players in the AFC, where you have a lot of great quarterbacks right now. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, and the list goes on and on and on. And then in the NFC, you have one great quarterback currently in Jalen Hurts. So there's going to be other people trying to take that baton and put a dent in your armor for a year or two. But really, if Mahomes is going to catch Brady, it's with this core right now. And it's like in, let's say, 4 more years of this core, he goes and wins like 2 more Super Bowls in the next 4 years. Because then he's sitting there at 4 as you get ready to enter a new wave and a new chapter of your career. Because if you look at Brady, he had 3 right off the bat. 3 in 4 years. Then they went 10 years without winning one. They got to 2 more, the undefeated season that ended up being 18-1, undefeated in the regular season, and then the second matchup against the Giants. And then Brady did something that we've never seen before, where a quarterback got better with age. And Brady really had 3 Hall of Fame careers in one. And in that big wave, that final chapter, he goes to the Super Bowl against Seattle, 10-point comeback against the LOB. Then they win Super Bowl 51, the 28-3 comeback. He throws 505 yards in a losing effort against the Eagles. Then beats the Rams, and then goes to Tampa Bay, a year in between, and then goes to Tampa Bay and wins the Super Bowl. So Brady had a big wave in the beginning and a big wave at the end. If Mahomes just wins 2 and doesn't win another Super Bowl for 6 or 7 years, which I don't think is going to be the case, and I would like to say he's going to win 1 bare minimum, then he didn't have that as big a wave as we thought in the beginning. So Mahomes is on that trajectory where there's a guy where you could say, wow, if there's one guy that's going to be able to get to 7, why would you bet against Patrick Mahomes right now? But it doesn't mean all of a sudden we now have to start calling him the GOAT before he's accomplished any of that. And oh yeah, by the way, Mahomes, as great as he is, and as much as I love him, he is 0-2 against Tom Brady in an AFC Championship game and a Super Bowl. Let's go to Harry Douglas. He was on Get Up, and he says Patrick Mahomes doesn't need 7 rings to catch Tom Brady.
I don't think it's going to take 7 Super Bowls for him to surpass Tom Brady as the GOAT.
You're doing the LeBron thing right now. LeBron doesn't need 6 rings to catch up with Michael. How many will it take? This is becoming the LeBron-Michael debate.
So Brady played in 2 eras, right? And Mahomes now is in the era where it's all high-octane offenses and video game numbers. Even me being the biggest Tom Brady fan probably on the planet, maybe his kids, maybe his family, things like that. But Mahomes will surpass Brady in terms of most of these stats if he stays healthy. But in terms of the Super Bowls, he could have a shot, but there's still a long way from 2 to get to 7 and then to 1-up him to get to 8. But right now, do we really need another GOAT conversation? That's the part to me that I just can't stand. And maybe it's because I'm not like everybody else in the media where they love the GOAT conversation. I hate the GOAT conversation with MJ and LeBron. And I hate the GOAT conversation now with Brady up against whoever you're comparing him to. Even when it was Brady Montana. Because it's just so dumb because you have so many people that make arguments that don't even make sense to praise their guy, but then to tear down the other guy. It's all subjective at the end of the day, but just don't be like Brandon Miller and say a player's the GOAT when he's not even anywhere close to that when you just know that he's your favorite player. All right, it is Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a timeout. When we come on back, Jalen Hurts has a new big endorsement. And we're going to look with Tom Brady no longer in the league, Peyton Manning well retired, Aaron Rodgers only having a few years left. Who are the future faces of the NFL? We'll do a little draft on that when we come on back. Zach Gelb in for Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio, Sirius XM Channel 158. And, of course, you could always watch us chilling with the Weedos and the Purple Drankers on YouTube.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Altuve buzzer is definitely.
Oh, you guys are nuts if you think he actually had a buzzer under there. He did it.
What? Wait, Stu, do you believe the buzzer?
I believe the buzzer.
You do?
I think everybody believes the buzzer.
No. Think about how silly that really is. You think all these years later, nobody would have spilled the beans? Nobody said a word?
Yeah, but it was so awkward the way he was hiding something.
No, he had a stupid tattoo and didn't want people to rip his shirt off.
Oh, get out of here.
I believe that.
Who on earth?
Sure.
Anyone I know with a tattoo wants to show that tattoo more than anything in the world.
You guys, I thought I was the conspiracy theorist around here. You guys sound whack.
They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
All righty, Zach Gelb in for Maggie and Perloff on this Tuesday. You could always give us a call, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Make sure you give me a follow, interact with me on social media, Twitter, X, whatever you call it these days, Instagram, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. Dalvin Cook now off to the New York Jets. Quincy Enunwa, former Jet wide receiver, going to join us 40 minutes from now. And then former NFL and Michigan offensive lineman John Jansen will stop by at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. So Jalen Hurts is going to become a part of the Jordan brand right now, which is a pretty big deal when you get an endorsement deal with the Jordan brand. And I think this is the cherry on top of the sundae for Jalen Hurts this offseason. Clearly, he got the big lucrative contract extension after having an MVP type of season, even though he didn't win the award this year because it did go to Mahomes. and then also getting to the Super Bowl. And even though he didn't win it, he was, in my opinion, the best player on the field on Super Bowl Sunday out in the desert in Arizona. But then there was a part of the offseason, even after getting paid, where there was a little ambiguity on, is Jalen Hurts getting the national respect? And the first person that brought that up was NFL insider for ESPN, Kimberly Martin. And she said something along the lines of, I think there's still disrespect nationally for Jalen Hurts. And that was followed up by Pro Football Focus, which you always got to take with a grain of salt. They put out some really good things, but then sometimes you'll watch a game, you go, that player's incredible, and Pro Football Focus will tell you, well, no, he didn't do this well, he didn't do that right, we have these statistics that say this and that, and you're like, all right, just shut up already. But the thing that I could not believe this year is how PFF, when they did their top 50 players, did not have Jalen Hurts in the top 50. So then I said, maybe Jalen Hurts is getting disrespected. But then the NFL Top 100 comes out, where the players vote on this. And entering the season, they had Jalen Hurts as the second best quarterback in the NFL, which I think it's Joe Burrow. And I put Jalen Hurts at 3 or 4. Personally, I put him at 4. I had Mahomes 1, Joe Burrow 2. You're splitting hairs with Allen and Hurts, but I would put Allen 3 and then Hurts 4. And they not only named him the second best quarterback in the NFL, the players, the third best player in the league. So then it's like, okay, there is respect for Jalen Hurts. And now you have the whole Jordan Brand endorsement, which if you get the validation from the Jordan Brand, that's a pretty big deal. By the way, there's 3 quarterbacks now that have deals with the Jordan Brand. One is Jalen Hurts. I'll ask you guys on the other side of the glass, Michael Samter and Stuart Kovacs, can you name the other 2 quarterbacks that have Jordan Brand deals right now?
Is there a Patrick Mahomes in there?
I'll give Stu a guess.
Is Joe Burrow one of them?
I'll give you one more guess each.
Let's go Lamar Jackson.
Incorrect.
Justin Herbert.
Incorrect. Man, you guys are wonderful. Let me tell you. The best in the business, they tell me. So, Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. And then Dak, we may talk about him a little bit. You know, the guy that's really good in the regular season, and then come playoff time, he usually chokes it up, sinks up the joint.
Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Oh, Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I got confused.
You can also say that for Aaron Rodgers, too. And then Panthers rookie, Bryce Young, which I was surprised when I read that via our friends at Pro Football Talk. All right, so give me a little NFL music, Stu Kovacs. Play me some tunes here. We're going to do a little draft, and it's the future faces of the NFL. So the faces of the NFL for the next 5 years. So like a guy like Aaron Rodgers, uncertainty if he's going to be able to play 5 more years. He's not in this conversation. The way this is going to work, you will get 4 picks. One disclaimer, though. One of the picks has to be a non-quarterback. So this isn't just quarterback. One has to be a non-quarterback. You can go 4 non-quarterbacks if you want, but bare minimum just 1 non-quarterback. So how should we decide this order, gentlemen?
Well, I mean, I guess we have to figure out who gets the first pick. We're doing a snake draft, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah, let's do a snake draft. Why not?
Snake draft. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the next. Okay. So we have to decide the order then.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you want this to be a dictatorship? Or do you want this to be a democracy? Because I could just say it's a dictatorship. I'll go 3. Santer goes 2, and Stu goes 1 if we want. Or we could do this in a fair way.
Listen, with three people picking, the first pick isn't necessarily a huge advantage.
That's why I said a dictatorship, and it put me at 3.
Huh?
See, I'm smart. Just a little bit.
Listen.
Looks are deceiving. I look stupid, but I'm not that stupid.
This is your show today. You're in the driver's seat, so I'll let you make the decision what you think is fair and unbiased.
Okay. I'm thinking of a number. 1 or 2. Stu, what's the number?
2.
It is 1. Michael Samter, first pick. Stu, I'm thinking of a number. 2 or 3?
2.
3.
Darn.
So I get the third pick. Stu gets the second pick. I don't know if that worked anyway. It could have been a mixture of a democracy and a dictatorship because I ended up getting the third pick. But it looked good. I was like a magician there. You were really engaged. You were believing the story. It was kind of like The Blind Side. You were believing the story, and then years later, you're like, oh, it's kind of fraudulent. They never adopted him.
Sure. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. I'll take the first pick, and of course, I'm going to take the best quarterback in the NFL, and that is going to be Baker Mayfield. No, Patrick Mahomes.
You said it. The pick is in. I'm sorry. You just went with Baker Mayfield.
Patrick Mahomes, number 1 overall.
All righty. So Samter goes Patrick Mahomes. Stu?
I will go with the second best quarterback in the NFL, and that is Joe Burrow.
Okay. I think this guy is the 4th best quarterback in the NFL, but he's in a conference where he is the star of the conference, and there's not a lot of names right now that you're looking at saying, they're in danger of taking that throne. I will go with Jalen Hurts. Now, I get the next pick because, as Samter explained, it's a snake draft. So if you don't know how a snake draft works, 1, 2, 3, then 3, 2, 1. This is a good one here. I'm going to go with Maggie Gray's favorite quarterback, jump through a table, and I will take Josh Allen. Real quickly, has Maggie ever jumped through a table? Have you guys done that? Through the 2-3 years she's been here at CBS Sports Radio, had her jump through a table?
She has not jumped through a table. We have not lit anything on fire for her to jump through or onto. But I feel like that's going to change this year.
I once got yelled at, by the way, by one of Josh Allen's ex-girlfriends. If you want a little Josh Allen story. You know Ray Martell, right? Who used to produce in this time slot when the network started. So Deion Dawkins got me tickets for Bills and Patriots. We didn't know where the seats were going to be. There was a parking pass. We didn't know it was going to be in the family lot. Now, I was respectful. I didn't wear my Patriot gear because Deion got me the tickets, college buddy. Ray, I told him, don't wear your Patriot gear. Ray doesn't listen. Ray comes out with the full Patriot jacket, a jersey, socks, boxers, jeans, all that.
Boxers, how'd you know?
I didn't know. I was just, it sounded right.
Okay.
You know, so sometimes you have to pull over to the side of the road and you got to take a leak and then you see someone's boxers. So we're tailgating and I realize we're in the players' family lot. And Ray is, we got a bunch of wings and we're throwing them on the grill to get them a little bit hot. And then all of a sudden, a big car drives in and out comes like 10 or 11 people. It was like a clown car, all wearing the 17 jersey. And this one lady, who was one of Josh Allen's ex-girlfriends, come running over and yelling at Ray, do you know how disrespectful it is that you're wearing Patriots gear in this lot? And Ray is the nicest person in the world. And Ray's like, you want a chicken wing?
Hey, that's the best way to dissolve a fight is just offer food.
She goes, no, I don't want a chicken wing. And she stormed off as like that crazy lady on the plane. It was kind of one of those moments.
Too bad it wasn't Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah. All righty. Yeah, that's true. Maybe I'll go back. Zach Gelb steals Josh Allen's girlfriend. And then Zach woke up from a dream. All righty. So I take Josh Allen. Stu?
Okay.
All right. So with my next pick, I will go with a young quarterback who I think is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league in the next couple of years. And that is Mr. Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And also very marketable, too. I did an interview once with Trevor, and he was promoting like Head and Shoulders, which is a great promotion for him. And he did the hair flip in the middle of the interview. And it was like, okay, this dude's just unbelievable. He knows how to play into the long hair and all that. I think he should come in with a buzz cut one day. It would ruin kind of the way you look at Trevor Lawrence, but I think it would be also funny if he came in with a buzz cut. All right, Samter, what do you got? You got 2 picks here.
I was kind of hoping he was going to go with this guy because I think this guy has a chance to be great, but I've seen interviews with him and he's just a little bit mild, so I worry that he's not going to have that
boring
pizzazz to be a face, but he's good enough that if he can start winning and put a couple Super Bowls on his shelf, he's absolutely going to be good enough to be a face of the NFL, and that's Justin Herbert. I was hoping Stu was going to go with him so I can take Trevor Lawrence because I am a huge Trevor Lawrence fan.
Justin Herbert's got better in interviews. I heard an interview that he did recently. You're right. There was a lot of times I'd be like, ooh, he's a tough listen.
Yeah.
And then I saw him do an interview like a week ago, and I thought he was a little bit more well-polished.
And listen, at the end of the day, winning is what matters, right?
Yeah.
Winning and putting up numbers matter. And he's going to do both. It's just a matter of whether or not he can ever take down Mahomes and win a title or two.
Like Jalen Hurts, for example, you hear him in an interview, he's boring. He comes from the Nick Saban school of just being boring and give you nothing. But then you see the way that he plays and the way that he's won, and it's like, okay, I don't care that he's boring. That's your quarterback if you're a fan of the Eagles. And someone that's very easy to root for. You have another pick. Go ahead.
I do. So let me just clarify. We're doing 3 picks total or 4 picks total?
4 picks total. Just one has to be a non-quarterback.
Okay.
And you could take that non-quarterback whenever you like.
I am going to take my non-quarterback now because the difference between 6 and 10 on my quarterback list is about the same. So I'm gonna go homer here. Offense wins everything, but defense and certain positions on defense are just fun and they're exciting. And this guy has been in the league for 1 year, and everybody knows his face. They know his name. They know his nickname. They know his bling.
That's way
He's
too
on
early.
the biggest team in the NFL. Sauce Gardner.
Way too early.
Sauce Gardner is going to be the non-quarterback face of the NFL moving forward.
Way too early. Great personality. I love me some Sauce Gardner, but way too early. Stu?
I will go also with my non-quarterback here, and I will go with the best wide receiver in the league right now, the best skill position player in the league right now, and that is Justin Jefferson, still so young and has a chance to be the face of the league, I believe.
Absolutely great one. Justin Jefferson could do no wrong. When he first got drafted, I had him on, and I was talking to the PR person in Minnesota afterwards, and I go, the dude looks like he's going to be a great player, and he knows how to handle the media well. Like, you hear Justin Jefferson in an interview, and he's just fun. I know he does it with a lot of people, but he did the gritty with Perloff, and you have to be fun to do the gritty with Perloff, because I can guarantee you, Sam, I'm just going down a limb, Perloff is not the ideal person to do the gritty, right?
He actually maintained himself pretty well up on stage with JJ, but it was not at the same level of Jefferson.
Okay. My next pick, I'm going Lamar Jackson. I'm surprised he's still on the board. Maybe people fear that the health part of it. And then also, my final pick, face of the NFL. You were smart going defensive player. If I had that pick in your spot, I would have gone with Justin Jefferson like Stu did. But, Samter, you were on to something going defense, but you picked the wrong defensive player.
I think I know where you're going. I actually had him 1 and 1A with my pick Sauce. I think I know where you're going.
How about them Cowboys?
Mr. Parsons.
Micah Parsons, who I actually broke the news to Micah Parsons at the Super Bowl this year that Kevin Durant was traded. We were at a steakhouse, and I said to my buddy, who we were at the steakhouse together, Kevin Durant just got traded. Table over was Micah Parsons. His son was like eating a steak at 3 years old. It was very impressive. And Micah Parsons goes, did you say Kevin Durant got traded? I go, yeah. And that was the end of the conversation. So I go Micah Parsons. Stu?
All right. I'm with my last pick. I am between 2 very young quarterbacks who have potential. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams, who will be the first overall pick next year and has a chance to be a great quarterback.
All right, so Santa, you're taking Arch Manning now?
I can take non-NFL players?
Yeah, that works. Stu, if Stu wants to take a gamble here and put a future on Caleb Williams, I can't complain.
You know what? I was going with all guys who are in the NFL right now, but
that's because Stu's creative.
Yeah, so I was thinking like Dak or Brock Purdy next, but you know, if I can take Arch Manning, give me Arch.
No Travis Kelce.
Nah, he's a tight end, but he certainly could be. I was thinking it, but he's also, how old is Travis Kelce now?
32, I believe.
Listen, he's a tight end. Could he play another 5 years? Maybe. He was on my list, but I can't go with 2 non-quarterbacks. So I'm going to go with Arch Manning. You're going to give me that? I'll take Arch because in 4 or 5 years, he's going to be the biggest thing that the NFL has seen in a long time.
33 for Travis Kelce. So no TJ Watt, no Nick Bosa from you as well.
I wasn't going to go with either Bosa because there's 2 Bosas, and I always get them confused.
Well, one plays for the Chargers, one plays for the 49ers.
Yeah,
Joey plays for the Chargers, Nick plays for the 49ers.
It's 2 Bosas. They're the same. They play the same position. At least with the Kelces, you got different positions, different personas, different facial hair structures. TJ Watt, I love him, but he's always hurt. I was looking at other guys. Cowboys, CD Lamb, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase.
You can't go running back in this day and age.
You can't, but Saquon Barkley's in New York, and Saquon's one of those guys who's great behind a mic.
And he's got 3 years left in his career.
Yeah, well, certainly possible. 3 years left of big money in his career, but he's got more time in his career.
We'll have to wait and see if he gets that big money, too. So this is the way the draft goes. Future faces of the NFL. Samter's 4. One has to be a non-quarterback. Mahomes, Herbert, Gardner, and Arch Manning. Stu goes Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Jefferson, Caleb Williams, and I go with Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and then Micah Parsons. Zach Gelb in for Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a timeout and come on back, and when we do return, I got 5 coaches for you in college football that I'm just curious how we're talking about these 5 coaches at the end of the college football season.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. Minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. Minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Continue Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio. Quincy Enunwa, former Jets wide receiver, and now is a analyst for NewYorkJets.com, going to stop by in about 18 minutes or so. I have 5 coaches in college football this year that some of them, they're under pressure. There's no doubt about it. For others, I'm just curious how we're talking about them at the end of the year. And the 5 coaches will do so right now in no order. Jimbo Fisher has to be right there to start. Where A&M has so much talent. A&M had a lot of talent last year, and they were god-awful. And now you bring in Bobby Petrino. The whole thing got hairy at the start of SEC Media Days, where the one publication he goes, yeah, Bobby's going to call the plays. And then when he's talking in a group setting, he would not admit that, and he got real quiet and not loquacious and would not go into depth over Bobby Petrino's role. For Jimbo Fisher, he may be saved because of his contract and how much money they would have to pay him to not coach. But if he has another dreadful season or a season that it's like, even mediocre, you start to just throw your hands up in the air and you go, what are we doing here at A&M? Because A&M, you can make the case that they have the 3rd or 4th most talented roster in the SEC. Like, they have enough talent there. And Connor Wegman's going to have a big year at quarterback. But eventually, if you have all this talent and you're not winning, there's one person to blame. Right now, some people say, oh, players got to go win. Players got to go make plays. But in college, when the head coach is the CEO of the program, and when he's able to go get all this talent, and then the talent does not produce enough wins, that's on the head coach. So I'm curious how we're talking about Jimbo Fisher at the end of the year. And my best guess on this one is it's going to be the way we've been talking about him recently, where there's a lot of talent, but his team does not meet those expectations. The other guy, James Franklin. James Franklin, he's similar to Jimbo Fisher. I know he doesn't have a national championship like Jimbo won at Florida State, but James Franklin has a very talented roster, a top 10 talented roster in all of college football this year. He's right there this season with Michigan, Ohio State, and then his program inside the Big Ten. But for James Franklin, he is god-awful against top 10 and top 5 programs. Is James Franklin a guy that is just able to get the talent in, and then once again, like I were talking about, Jimbo Fisher can't do anything with the talent? This is a big year for James Franklin, where he just signed a 10-year extension, so he's not going to go anywhere. But you look at the roster that they have, if not now, getting into the college football playoff, when it's still 4 teams and it's an honor to get into the college football playoff where it doesn't get in a year from now watered down when you go to 12 teams. If you can't get in this year, then the way that a lot of people are going to look at James Franklin, you're going to turn your head and go, okay, he can get the talent, but he can't get that talent to enough victories to get them into a college football playoff. And he's won a Big Ten championship before, but he wasn't in the college football playoff that year. Steve Sarkisian. I think Sark is going to be back at Texas next year. But it's how are we talking about Sark being back at Texas? Quinn Ewers, this is your year. Quinn Ewers, I hope you play your ass off. Because Quinn Ewers was phenomenal until he got hurt in that Alabama game. They would have defeated Alabama that day. But then he got hurt. And then they had to find a way to pull it out by 1 point. Or Alabama ended up getting the victory. Now this is your final year in the Big 12. It's only getting tougher next year entering the SEC. The reason why Sark will be there next year is because Arch Manning committed to the university. And when Arch is the starter, you're at least going to have 1 year of Sark and Arch together. But at the end of this year, are we saying Steve Sarkisian's on the hot seat going into the SEC? Is he on the hot seat entering in a new era of Arch Manning, or did Texas take advantage of the Big 12 this year? They are projected to win the Big 12. Did they end up coming through on that projection and winning the Big 12 and give you some momentum entering a new era and a highly anticipated era of Texas football? Jim Harbaugh. I want to know at the end of this year, did Jim Harbaugh, who for years it was, can he beat Ohio State? Can he get to the Big Ten championship? Can he win the Big Ten championship? The last 2 years, he dragged Ohio State up and down the field and dominated them in the trenches. Then you get into the college football playoff after winning a Big Ten championship. You got embarrassed against Georgia. And then last year, you're playing TCU, and you kept on tripping over yourself in that first half. This year, you return your quarterback. You have 2 great running backs back on that team in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. There should be no excuses this year for Jim Harbaugh. 0. And then also with this pending situation with the NCAA, does Jim Harbaugh at the end of this year just say, bleep it, I'm done? Where they're going to punt this suspension probably and come down with the suspension next year, and it's not going to be agreed upon 4 games where we thought he was going to miss 4 games up against cupcake teams this year. And does it get to a point where Jim Harbaugh goes, NFL, I want to go join you? Because the last 2 years, Jim Harbaugh could sell it however he wants. He could backtrack however he wants. The last 2 years, he's been interested in the NFL. You don't interview with the Minnesota Vikings with Quincy Adolfo-Mensa, who he knew going back from his time with the 49ers, and sit there for 8 to 10 hours if you don't want the job. He wanted the job. He didn't get offered the job. And then this past offseason, he threw his name out there again. No one offered him a job. So are NFL owners now saying, I'm out on Jim Harbaugh? Or they think, like Samter was saying yesterday, Jim Harbaugh wants all this control with how the way that it went down between him and Trent Baalke in San Francisco. I still got to think that at least one NFL owner would give Jim Harbaugh what he wants, whatever that is that he wants. And that's an NFL job. Now, how it's defined and how much power, how much say he has, those are all different questions. But you look at the resume of Jim Harbaugh. When he was in the NFL, 3 NFC title games with the Niners and a Super Bowl appearance, where he almost had a great comeback against the Baltimore Ravens when you had that whole blackout after the Beyonce halftime show in New Orleans. But for Harbaugh, I want to see if he won the national championship this year, and then also, is he staying at Michigan after this season? And then finally, Nick Saban. Now, don't worry. I'm not going to be like Paul Feinbaum, and that was intentional. I'm not going to be like him and say the legacy of Nick Saban is on the line. But if you have that jackassery already being said about Nick Saban, imagine if Nick Saban again misses the college football playoff, where this is the stupid world that we live in, where we've just seen Nick Saban dominate college football for well over a decade and take Alabama to once again being a dynasty and put them in a dynastic level. And now he misses he loses the national championship, misses the college football playoff. He misses the college football playoff again. You know you're going to have low-hanging fruit, dumb segments on ESPN and Fox where people are going to say, did the game pass Nick Saban by? Is Nick Saban on the 18th hole? Is his career coming to a close? Now, I look at Alabama this year. They're vulnerable. We don't even know who's going to be their quarterback. No more Bryce Young. No more Will Anderson Jr. They didn't even get to the college football playoff last year with having the 1st and 3rd pick in the draft, the first quarterback off the board, first player off the board, and then the first defensive player off the board in at number 3. I just want to see how much of a reminder people could give Nick Saban about how great he is this year. Because if he doesn't get into the college football playoff, you know you're going to have idiots popping up out of nowhere trying to say that Alabama and Nick Saban in the college football landscape as we love it are dead. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let me go to Michael in Ohio here real quickly. Next up on Maggie and Perloff with guest host Zach Gelb. Michael, what's happening?
Hey, how you doing, Jack?
Doing great.
Hey, love you on the show. I love when you're on the show. You and Maggie work perfect together. Too,
appreciate that.
No problem. I just have to really talk to you like you're one of these Michigan fans. I just don't know where all this coming from Michigan. I understand the last 2 years Michigan did beat Ohio State. I was at the game last year. It should have been 17-3 going into the second quarter, but
it wasn't.
It ended up being. You're right, exactly. But Ohio State definitely played horrible games the last 2 years. And I'm not taking anything away.
They got dominated in the trenches. You know that.
You're exactly right. You're right. But for like this Michigan fan saying they're all like, oh, we're back. We own you guys. You're 3-15 since 2004. You've won one national championship since 1950, which was in 1997. And you have 6 national championships before the television was even invented. So you have not been relevant or a national powerhouse at any time in the last 50, 60, 70 years.
Well, they've always been a big brand in Michigan.
Of course. Same thing as Notre Dame.
But Michael,
yes.
Here's the thing. If you are that much better than them, and if the numbers are that much more in your favor, beat them this year. You have a great receiving core.
Exactly.
Beat them this
year. You got to win. They have to go up to Ann Arbor, and they have to win, or 3 years in a row. I think even with the record that Ryan Day has, he might be out.
And he only has 6 losses, too. And that's a great point that you bring up, because the Ohio State fan has a standard.
Yes, they
Beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, be competitive for a national championship.
100%.
And even though Urban Meyer was very slimy, Urban Meyer found the way to never lose to Michigan, and he won. Exactly. Now, Ryan Day takes over a great program. Ryan Day wins a whole lot of games, but the last 2 years, you would have never seen Urban Meyer lose to Michigan in that fashion. And now you're starting to see it turn a little bit. You've seen it change a lot. The Michigan fan gets very happy and very confident, as they should be, and they have a better team on paper this year. But the last 2 years, some would argue that the Ohio State team was better on paper. And Ohio State lost both those games. So Ohio State, you could be annoyed. You could say what the numbers are. You could talk to Michigan like they're your little brother. They kicked your ass the last 2 years. So if you want to say all those things, take the throne back. And there's no excuses this year. But the Ohio State fan, even though Day only has 6 losses, and a lot of programs would go swoop in and hire him, if somehow Ohio State fired him, and I know their AD's leaving as well, if you get rid of him, I could understand it, because the Ohio State fan, in their standard, it's different than a lot of other team standards. And you lose 6 games, most fan bases would take that. But when you're losing to Michigan the way that you are, and you're not getting, even though they got back to the college football playoff last year, but they didn't win the Big Ten championship, it definitely changes things. So this is a big year for Ohio State. This is a big year for Ryan Day. Zach Gelb in on Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio. The Jets, they snagged Dalvin Cook. What are the Jets going to do this season? A lot of high expectations for the first time in forever with the JTS Jets. One of their former wide receivers, Quincy Enunwa, will join us on the other side. Update time first. Here he is, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, well, the Colts have decided their future is now. 4th overall pick in the draft, Anthony Richardson has been named your starter.
You know, it means a lot. You know, I'm forever thankful. You know, I respect all those guys in the building. You know, I appreciate all of them. And, you know, I just try to work my tail off every day for them, because I don't want to come in here and make it seem like that everything should be handed to me, because it definitely shouldn't. You know, I have to work for everything, and they've been here working for everything. So I'm just trying to reciprocate the same thing and just continue to grind and continue to gain respect and trust from those guys.
Richardson beat out Gardner Minshew as the rookie from Florida completed 7 of 12 passes, 67 yards in his 1 quarter of action against the Bills in the preseason. One day after the Jets brought in the veteran and Dalvin Cook to bolster that running game, Gang Green has now welcomed back Breece Hall from the PUP list. Second year back, was their leading rusher last year into a torn ACL in Week 7, ended his season. Umpire Angel Hernandez lost his appeal in a lawsuit against Major League Baseball, alleging racial discrimination for not being assigned a World Series since 2005 and being passed over for crew chief. Hernandez, who was born in Cuba, lost the original case in 2021 as well. And Spain, upended Sweden 2-1, reached their first Women's World Cup finals. They'll face the winner between England and Australia. I'm Marco Belletti.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube, and in the palm of your hand with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. It is Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio. Zach Gelb filling in on this Tuesday. And how about the Jets? They've been the biggest story of the offseason. You can catch them on Hard Knocks coming up later tonight. And there's going to be a new friend joining the New York Jets, and that's Dalvin Cook, who signs the deal last night. And that wait is over, so Aaron Rodgers gets another friend to operate that offense with. And now joining us is a former Jets wide receiver. Does a great job as an analyst for NewYorkJets.com. Got a big charity event coming up with St. Barnabas Hospital that we'll get to in just a bit. And that's Quincy Enunwa here with us on CBS Sports Radio. Quincy, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. I got to start you off because I know you're a Cornhusker going back to your days in Nebraska. I am actually traveling to Lincoln at the end of September for Michigan, Nebraska. I've known Matt Rule back to my Temple days at Temple University, so I'm making a little trip out there. What is the must things that I have to do when in Lincoln, Nebraska? Because I haven't really found a great list yet.
Oh, man. Well, so that's funny. Somebody else asked me the same question. I think the first thing you have to do is go down to the Haymarket. They've completely transformed it. They have the bank. They call it the bank, the vault. They have a huge arena down there. They've got all types of bars, all types of fun things to do. So the Haymarket is definitely like number one on your list. I could probably go down a list of so many different things, but I think number one is do that. Number two is definitely go to a game because that experience of none other.
What was that like for you in college when you were playing at Nebraska? Because it's such a legendary fan base. I know they're trying to fight their way back and they've gone through some tough times, but how do you kind of recall that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever experienced a game day like that. You know, even the first time I went, I knew it was where I wanted to go. I had a visit to another place. I tell this story all the time. I went to Washington State, visited there. I enjoyed it. But then I went to Nebraska and I saw the fan base, the balloons going up every time you score a touchdown that they don't do anymore. But, you know, there's just so much tradition they have there, so much love that you get from the fan base. And, I mean, I don't know if there's any other fan base that really rides for their team like Nebraska fans do.
Quincy Enunwa here with us. So how did you react to it when you got the alert last night that Dalvin Cook, the wait is over? He finally made the decision and he's going to join your Jets.
Yeah, it's an exciting moment for this team, right? I mean, I think you look at this offseason, to sign Aaron Rodgers, to bring in Nathaniel Hackett, to do all these different things, to bring Quentin Williams to give him an extension. The Jets are really moving in a direction that says, we want to win a championship. So you bring a guy in like Dalvin Cook, if we're being honest, they didn't need that much help in the run game, but now you've got a huge boost in Dalvin Cook, right? So I think it's just more weapons for Aaron Rodgers, more opportunities to score some touchdowns. So it should be an exciting year.
And it also shows, right, Aaron Rodgers, he takes the big pay cut and, $35 million less. And also it's clear that he wanted Dalvin Cook. Bringing in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, not that New York was ever an unattractive destination, but it makes other guys want to join the fun that Aaron Rodgers is trying to build here.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, New York is a great destination. I talked to a couple guys that signed there and they said themselves, if not right now, at least post-career, New York is a place that they want to be at. So you have that. You have Aaron Rodgers, an attractive quarterback, a guy that, has won a title, won MVPs, so I think it's just going to become even more attractive for anybody that's considering, what team should I go in as the season starts.
You talked about the goal of winning a Super Bowl. When you look at this Jets roster now, getting closer and closer to the start of the season, how realistic do you think that is in year one of Rodgers in the Big Apple?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really make that type of prediction. I think ultimately I want to say that the Jets are very close to winning the Super Bowl. You think about last year, they had a top 10 defense in the league. They had an offense that was doing really well in all facets of the game before Breece Hall went down. Once they lost that run game, there was really kind of a disconnect on what their identity was. And so I think that you saw that throughout the rest of the year. So now they have a quarterback, they've got a run game, they've got an increased run game with Dalvin Cook. So it's hard to imagine that you have the defense with this offense here. Special teams unit is going to come back to where they once were. I don't see why they can't go to the Super Bowl this year.
Here's my one concern. Everything you just said is true. But this game is won in the trenches, and I'm just concerned, what is that offensive line going to look like for this upcoming season? And that, for me, determines how high the Jets will fly in 2023.
Yeah, I agree. I think that will be a question mark for this team. I think when you look at it last year, though, they actually had, so many guys rotating in there that were serviceable, right? You had guys coming in, Max Mitchell, you had ABT, you had different guys that nobody expected them to do what they did, and they performed well. So the question mark is there, and it makes a lot of sense. But I think with all the injuries that happened last year, I think if you can have guys just stay healthy, I think these guys can do exactly what they need to do. And again, you've got Aaron Rodgers, so he knows how to protect himself. He knows how to get rid of the ball, and he's still a mobile quarterback. He's not the guy he once was, but this is a guy that can still make plays for your offense.
Quincy Enunwa here with us. Last year they had no quarterback play with Zach Wilson and Mike White, and Garrett Wilson was still able to put up 1,100 yards. What's the expectations in year number 2 for one Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, if this guy stays healthy, I mean, it's got to increase, right? Like, you've got a guy now that can get you the ball at all levels of the field, right? A guy that can run routes at all levels of the field. So he's not just a one-dimensional receiver. He can do everything for you. You can put him in the slot. You can put him outside. You can send him on a deep ball. You can send him on a small hitch and watch him break some tackles. So, I mean, the guy's an exciting player to watch. He's only going to get better.
How about the rest of the receiving core? Because my producer, Michael Samter's a big Jet fan, and he's optimistic usually than he is in previous years. But he looked at that wide receiver core. He goes, after Garrett Wilson, he gets concerned if Garrett Wilson was to go down. How about the other receivers with this unit?
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think that the Jets have a guy on their roster right now that has really shown themselves to be a number one, right? I think Corey Davis has shown many aspects of it, but he just hasn't been as consistent as the Jets have wanted him to be. But that's a guy that's talented. You got Alan Lazard is also a talented guy. Another guy, McCole Hardman. All these guys are hungry, right? They're all coming from situations where they weren't able to be the guy that they wanted to be internally. And now they have opportunities to really make plays with a quarterback that can do that for them. So I'm excited to see what they do, how they put it all together. They also have some young guys, Jason Brownlee, a young guy, undrafted, to make plays in camp, right? So you got guys that are not only just pushing the guys at the top, but also guys from the bottom pushing up too. So, I mean, you can only get better, especially when your top guy is Garrett Wilson.
Take us behind the scenes. We know guys like Randall Cobb and also Alan Lazard, they don't have to build chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. They've been with him in Green Bay. But as a receiver who worked with a bunch of different quarterbacks, how do you build that chemistry in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, that's a challenge, but I like what Aaron Rodgers is doing right now. He's doing a good job of really spreading himself out, making sure that he's taking time with guys individually, not only on the field, but also off the field. So that really helps a lot, and then it also helps, obviously, that this is basically his offense. So a lot of the terminology is easy for him to kind of translate to guys. He's not also learning the offense. He's getting an opportunity to know the offense and then just kind of coach. He doesn't have to learn during training camp. He could spend more time pouring into these young guys and kind of building those relationships.
What separates the Jets from the Bills and the Dolphins just inside the AFCs? I'll exclude the Patriots, and that's coming from a Patriot fan. They're not in the same level right now as those other three teams inside the AFCs.
Yeah, I mean, so when we talked about these teams in the beginning of the year, I thought the Dolphins, with their acquisitions, obviously now they just lost Jalen Ramsey. But with some of those acquisitions they made in the offseason, I thought they were going to be a really challenging team for this Jets team. Last year they challenged and they didn't have their starting quarterback. I know a lot of guys like to talk about Tua and all those different things. The Jets didn't have a starting quarterback. But the Dolphins still gave the Jets a pretty hard time in those two games that they played them. In that first game, obviously it was a little bit – it wasn't even close. But the second one was a little bit more of a challenge. I'm looking forward to seeing them play. Then when we talk about the Bills, those guys are they're on top. They've been on top for the past few years. That dynamic of Diggs and Allen, I mean, that's hard to beat. They still have a serviceable defense, so it's hard to say who's going to come out on top between those three teams. But I think if the Jets show improvement from last year, especially with Aaron Rodgers, I think it'll be one for them to take.
If you were still on the Jets, Quincy Enunwa, and let's say you were trying to develop a little bit of a relationship with Aaron Rodgers, we got to see Sauce Gardner at the Knicks playoff game with Jessica Alba. Michael Carter, the running back, told me that he went to the Kentucky Derby with Aaron Rodgers, and then a few of the guys went to Hamilton. What would be the ideal trip with Aaron Rodgers if you didn't have to lock yourself in a cave and do some ayahuasca with him?
That's a good question. I think I would probably have to take the MSG Knicks game. I think that would have been a good opportunity, a fun opportunity to be courtside with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe you could watch a Lakers game. That's my team. So getting to see LeBron James up front any of those opportunities that they've had has been amazing. I'm glad that he's doing that with those guys.
How'd you become a Lakers fan? Is it just because LeBron, or you always been a Laker fan?
I actually grew up in California, so that helped out a lot. Grew up when Kobe was winning championships. So,
what did you take away from Kobe Bryant?
Oh man, just his mentality. Obviously, I think everybody talks about that, but the mentality that he had, that he brought to the game, I think I tried to emulate that a lot. He may have been one guy off the field, but on the court, he was a monster, right? He was the Black Mamba. It was a whole different mentality, and I really tried to emulate that.
All right, Quincy Enunwa, before we let you run, you're doing some great work off the field, a part of the St. Barnabas Hospital first annual New York Teams of Heroes Gala at the Lighthouse at Chelsea Piers, New York City on Monday, December 4th. Tell us the fine work that you're doing with the great folks at St. Barnabas Hospital.
Yeah, St. Barnabas has been a wonderful partnership for me, man. I never even thought that it would happen, but it's been great to kind of give back with them. I did a camp just recently where we were able to provide kids with not only the knowledge and the knowledge of athletics and also nutrition, but also like off the field, we were able to give them meals. And a lot of those kids hadn't even had a meal all day. So you're talking about an environment that they're just not getting the services that they need to get. And so this hospital here is a nonprofit hospital, and they're providing that to people who usually aren't going to get those opportunities.
And joining the event is going to be Dexter Lawrence, Deontay Banks of the Giants, and then from the Jets, Will McDonald, Tyler Conklin, and Michael Clemens. Last thing I'll ask you, just because I read off that list, there's some Giants and there's some Jets. Let me ask you one Giant question here. If Daniel Jones was your quarterback, what do you think your view would be of Daniel Jones entering this season?
Oh, that's a tough one, man. I can't say because I'm a Jet, so I'm going to leave that question alone.
That means you don't believe in Daniel Jones, it seems, Quincy Enunwa. That's what it sounds like to me a little bit.
I can't say.
There we go. Quincy Enunwa, great to catch up with you. Appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
There we go. Quincy Enunwa joining us on Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio. Appreciate him stopping by for a few moments. And once again, doing some great work with St. Barnabas Hospital for the first annual New York Team of Heroes Gala at the Lighthouse at Chelsea Piers, NYC on Monday, December 23rd. I'm just going to have one little take from that interview. Not a fan of Daniel Jones. That was just a takeaway. If you can't say you're a fan of Daniel Jones, then it means you aren't there, which I can understand. And the Giants, to me, are intriguing this year. I don't think the Giants are going to make the playoffs. I like Daboll. I like Joe Shane, right? You have some pieces on both sides of the ball in the trenches with Thomas Ewing to a new deal, Lawrence Ewing to a new deal. Daniel Jones took a nice step this season, but now can he repeat it and improve off of it? And bringing in Darren Waller was a nice move. Saquon back in that on that franchise tag, and you give him some incentives. But do they have enough at wide receiver where Daniel Jones can go to a different level? And there's always a bunch of teams that make the playoffs one year and miss it the next year. The Giants won a playoff game. I think the Giants could be a wild card team, but right now, if you ask me, even in a weak NFC, I think they're on the outside looking in, and they overachieved last year, and now they take a little bit of a step back this upcoming season. Zach Gelb here with you on Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio, Sirius XM Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and, of course, YouTube. We will take a break, and when we come on back, we'll do a little make or miss the playoffs in the NFL.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The idea about eating a bowl of Skyline chili, pie eating contest style with like your hands behind your back, that is just gonna be an awful look. And that's gonna live on the internet for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I'm kind of hoping I lose. And you know when a baby eats spaghetti and the spaghetti sauce gets all over it? I'm just picturing that.
Yes.
Kids just like eat naked mostly for like the first several years of their life.
Yes.
I have all these pictures of my two girls when they were young. It looks like they were just like bleeding from everywhere. It was just tomato sauce over their entire upper half.
It looks like a horror show.
They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
All righty, Zach Gelb in for both Maggie and Perloff right here on this Tuesday. Tomorrow, JR will be in the house. I'll be back on Thursday, and then Amy Lawrence will be in on Friday, entertaining you in this time slot across all of your great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the Free Odyssey app, and of course, on YouTube with the Weedos and the Purple Drankers. So tomorrow morning, I'm off to Philadelphia, and I'm going to go to the streets of Philadelphia to go see my guy, Bruce Springsteen, and the legendary E Street Band. Bruce is my favorite musician of the E Street Band of all time. I'm just going to throw this question out there real quickly. Best concert that you've ever been to? And if I'm going to judge you based off your looks and then also knowing your concert history, for Stu a little bit, Samter, I have no clue. I'm just going to take a stab. Samter, I feel like, is a huge AC/DC fan. I don't know why. That's just the vibe I get with Samter. Now, for Stu, I follow Samter on social media, but I've never seen him post about a concert. For Stu, I've seen you post about a concert before, and it's Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift is the thing right now. And I think Stu's favorite concert ever is going to be Taylor Swift. So, Stu, I'll let you go first on that analysis.
It is. It's the best show I've been to by far. Just the vibes of it, the music, all of it, the atmosphere, it was great.
Okay, let's say your girlfriend. Did your girlfriend take you to the show? Or did you take her? Like, you guys
we took each other to the show.
Gotcha. Yeah, expensive.
It's a lot of money for one person to pay for two, I would
Stu's
say.
Entire salary just went out the window.
Basically.
That wasn't nice, but welcome to radio, folks.
It's pretty true.
Let me ask you this then. If you take Taylor Swift out of it, best show that Stuart Kovacs has ever been to?
I went to a weekend concert a year and a half ago. Maybe it's about a year ago now.
Didn't see Stu being a big weekend guy.
Yeah, that was
So you
great
enjoyed
too.
when he was running through that Super Bowl halftime show, and it looked like we were just like some of the Weedos right now, just on a
Yeah,
giant
it did.
trip.
That was quite a Super Bowl halftime show. But
That was
yeah.
at Tampa Bay, I'm pretty sure, in the
Brady,
the
Mahomes.
COVID Super
Yes.
Bowl, in the COVID season. Samter, was I right on my AC/DC analysis with you?
I've got 5 favorite bands, and AC/DC is within that group.
See, you just look at Samter. Samter just looks like someone that likes AC/DC.
Yeah. But I've been to, so I have a lot on my list. AC/DC I've seen 4 or 5 times, including Front Row in Arizona. I did see AC/DC where Axl Rose was the lead singer. That was at MSG because Brian Johnson hurt his throat and his hearing, so he couldn't perform. But there were 2 concerts that stand out to me. There was a Pearl Jam concert series in Boston, a 3-day series where every single night they didn't repeat any song that they had played in any of the other 2 nights. So it was 3 nights, and every single night were different songs. You never heard the same song twice, and it was incredible. So you basically got to hear like 60 Pearl Jam songs. And on the last night, they were doing their encore, and there was like a curfew for this venue, and they basically started cursing out everybody and just been like, "Screw you, we're gonna go past the curfew," and they just went for like another like 20 minutes, which was great. But the best concert I ever went to was actually a music festival in Germany. It's 3-day long, in Nuremberg,
Bougie
Germany.
over
It was a
here.
3-day long festival.
Look at this guy.
And the headliners for the first night were like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park. Fine, whatever. The headliners for the second night were Outkast, Alanis Morissette, Radiohead, and Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Samter didn't have any like jam bands in there.
No, I'm not a big jam band.
Samter just
Dave
really
Matthews,
wanted
Fish,
to get down,
not for
and
me.
chill.
Yeah, no.
I'm a little bit surprised by that. I could have seen you being a fish head if I'm being serious.
Old school Radiohead has a little bit of that vibe to it too. But this concert, so Radiohead came out. They were the second headliner, and Guns N' Roses was going to come out last. So Radiohead plays their set, and it turns out something happened with Guns N' Roses. Either it's Axl or whatever. They didn't come out. They didn't even show up to the event.
Yeah.
So Radiohead comes back out and says, "You know what? Guns N' Roses isn't coming. We're just going to keep playing." So they played for like another 45 minutes, and it was like an hour and a half to 2 hours of Radiohead. It was incredible.
So I've seen Springsteen a ridiculous amount of times. That's by far and away my favorite concert ever. If it is not Springsteen, I actually will say the best show that I've seen was Watch the Throne at MSG with Jay-Z and Kanye. And Jay-Z did something that the Weedos and Purple Drankers would really appreciate. In about like an hour and a half left in the show, he goes, "All security, stand down." And everyone's like, "What the heck's happening?" He goes, "You guys paid a lot of money to see this show. If you've brought some extracurricular activities and you want to spark them up, be my guest." And he even pointed to a security guard. He said, "You bald guy over there, sit down." And then the place started to smell a little bit funky inside the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden.
Surprised you made it out of there.
Well, yeah, I of course was not partaking in any of those things that Jay-Z was trying to get us to do. I actually went to the Jay-Z Museum. They have in one of the libraries, they have a museum for like 30 days. And it was pretty cool. It's a cool experience. But Springsteen, by far and away my favorite. And then after that, the Kanye Jay-Z concert. Now, if Kanye went into concert in 2023, I don't even know if you'd actually get the show. He'd ramble about something and then just would run off the stage and something crazy would go on. All right, give me a little NFL music right here, Stu. We're going to do a segment called Make or Miss, and we're talking about the playoffs, not Stu's jump shot. So Stu's going to give me the team, and I'm going to tell you if they're going to make or miss the playoffs for this upcoming season. By the way, John Jansen, former NFL and college offensive lineman, played at Michigan, now does radio in Detroit. He's going to join us coming up in about 10 minutes from now. Stu, take it away.
The Minnesota Vikings.
They are going to make the playoffs. A lot of people believe the Vikings are going to regress this year. You're not wrong. But remember, they won 13 games last year. Kirk Cousins is the definition of a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. You have Justin Jefferson there, Alexander Madison, KJ Osborne, Addison, the receiver from Pitt and USC. Brian Flores coming in, which should help that defense. You should be able to be a 9 or 10 win team inside the NFC, and that will be a playoff team.
The Detroit Lions.
I'm saying miss. I think they are going to miss the playoffs this year. One offseason, there's always a team that everyone falls in love with. The Lions have been one of those teams this year. And the Lions had a great end of the season where they beat the Packers. I know they didn't make the playoffs. I like Jared Goff. He's solid. I'm not going to say I love him. You look at Jameson Williams when he comes back from the 6-game suspension. I believe Jahmyr Gibbs could have a big rookie season. They're going to need to. And I'm a big fan of Aiden Hutchinson. But everyone's going all in on the Lions. And for me, I say, hold up, wait a minute. I'm not going to pick the Lions to make the playoffs.
You know, that's a name that you mentioned that I had on my list as a potential future face of the NFL. Not quite there yet, but Aiden Hutchinson could be one of those guys. If he ends up being dominant, I could see. He's entertaining. He's on a lovable team. Could be interesting.
I just don't, and I like Aiden Hutchinson a lot. But face of the NFL?
Not yet, but I could see it.
That's a big, big, big claim. That's a big claim by Michael Samter. Man, something about whoever sits in that producing chair. I got Hickey telling me all these crazy things. Hot take Hickey. We'll come up with some nickname for Samter, but geez. That's a bold take, and I'm a big fan of one Aiden Hutchinson.
I didn't draft him. I'm just saying he was on my list of about 10 guys that I had.
No, I didn't even think about him. Next team.
The Cleveland Browns.
Browns are going to miss the playoffs. But as we get closer and closer to the season, I think I'm starting to talk myself into the Browns making the playoffs. But right now, I'm going to say miss. They're loaded on both sides of the ball. Just what scares me about the Browns is the relationship or the lack of it between Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson. They're in a tough division. They're in a loaded conference. You can't put everybody in. I am starting to believe a little bit more in the Cleveland Browns. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Hoo, hoo. But for now, they're on the outside looking in.
The Denver Broncos.
Miss. Mile high miss again. You get Sean Payton. You think it's going to be an easy turnaround. Don't you Broncos fans learn anything? Last year you got Russell Wilson. They were supposed to be this great team, and you stunk. Now all of a sudden you get Nathaniel Hackett out in your offense. It's supposed to be something good. I know you bring in a great offensive line in Sean Payton, but your offensive line, I don't trust it. You have one wide receiver in Jerry Jeudy, and he's not even a number one in this league. And I like Javonte Williams, but he's coming off an ACL injury. And Russell Wilson is a major question mark. There's too many teams in the AFC. I think the Broncos will be improved this year. It can't get worse than last season, or so you hope. But I still think they're on the outside looking in come playoff time, so I'm going miss.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
I like their defense a lot. With Minkah Fitzpatrick and then also TJ Watt, if they could stay healthy. You have an offense with Pickens and Najee Harris and also Pat Freiermuth. Big year number 2 for Kenny Pickett, and he was good at the end of last season. They're going to be good. They're going to be a team that Mike Tomlin, we all know, gets the most out of his teams in the regular season. But once again, they're the 3rd team at best in the AFC North. At best. For starters, the Bengals in front of them, the Ravens in front of them, and then also you could argue the Browns. It's going to be close. They'll probably be 9-8 though and miss the playoffs.
Los Angeles Chargers.
They will make the playoffs. Will they go as far as the way the roster is constructed where they should be going? No, because Brandon Staley just does not cut it in the NFL as a head coach. But you have Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston out of TCU, Austin Eckler, who's a stud. And defensively, you got some names there. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, J.C. Jackson. Remember, they got hit with the injury bug this year. Hopefully they have better fortunes this year when it comes to staying healthy. But you got the quarterback. They'll make the playoffs again. But in the postseason, Brandon Staley will do something stupid.
The Seattle Seahawks.
And I think they could be, the upside for the Seahawks this year, third best team in the NFC. They're not going to win that division. It's going to be the 49ers. They won't be the 3 seed. But they could be the third best team when you evaluate the NFC. The running backs, they got to get healthy. But you got 2 young running backs in Zach Charbonnet and then Kenneth Walker, who I loved coming out of Michigan State. From a receiving standpoint, DK Metcalf. You have Tyler Lockett. You just drafted Jackson Smith-Njigba, who, if you ask me, he's the best wide receiver out of the rookie draft class. You got some serious talent there and a really good young up-and-coming secondary. Geno, even if he regresses, just don't fall flat on your face. That team should be a 10-win team bare minimum. They're in the playoffs.
The New York Giants.
I was talking about this a little bit earlier. They're going to miss. They miss. And they were a team last year that if you told me they would have made the playoffs, no one would have believed you. I just still wonder if they have enough talent on the offensive side of the ball to replicate what they did last year. And that's a big concern for me. I think they're right there fighting for that 7th and final wild card spot in the NFC. This year, the ball just doesn't bounce their way. And then you have a big year 3 for Joe Shane and Brian Dable. Have done a really good job changing the culture with the Giants and getting it back in a good spot. But I think they just come up a little bit short this year and they miss the playoffs.
The Washington Commanders.
I have vacillated a lot on that final wild card spot where I was a little bit high on the Packers about a month ago. Then I pivoted to the Commanders. And then you had all the Eric Bieniemy, Ron Rivera nonsense from last week. I don't know what Sam Howell's going to be. I know he had a solid game at the end of the year last year and played well in preseason game number 1. I like that roster, though. I'm going to say make. I like Terry McLaurin a lot. I like Jahan Dotson. I like Brian Robinson Jr. And that front 7 was hurt last year and did not live up to the hype. But they got talent. And I think they're going to be the team that flips with the Giants, where they just edge out the Giants. They edge out a team like the Packers and the Lions to get that final wild card spot in the NFC.
The New York Jets.
Make. And you know what's crazy? Even in a loaded AFC East and a loaded AFC, the Jets are a slam dunk to make the playoffs as long as number 8, as we call him, I almost said number 12, is healthy. The Jets will make the playoffs. The only flaw in that football team is the offensive line, and that could derail a season. But with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, I know they missed the playoffs last year, but he was injured when he was with the Packers. That should be enough to get you in the postseason. As long as that offensive line holds up, the Jets are going to be a dangerous team this upcoming season.
The New Orleans Saints.
Miss. That team's never healthy. I do not trust Dennis Allen as a head football coach. Derek Carr put on a lot of muscle. He's looking good. A lot of people think the Saints will win that division. That division is so bad that you kind of expect the unexpected. I'm taking the Falcons to win that division, so I go miss right there for the New Orleans Saints. So there's a little make or miss right there as we go through a bunch of teams in the NFL. The Lions are one of the teams that we've discussed. John Jansen does radio in Detroit now. He played in the NFL. He also played for the Michigan Wolverines, so we'll get his thoughts on the entire landscape in college football when we return in 5 minutes. You're listening to Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio, Sirius XM, the free Odyssey app, and, of course, YouTube. And we're coming on back with former offensive lineman John Jansen after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. Minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. Minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Continue. It is Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio. Zach Gelb filling in on this Tuesday. Let's go out to the guest line right now. Welcome in John Jansen, the former NFL offensive lineman, played his college ball at Michigan, was the second round, 37th pick in the 1999 NFL draft. Now doing a kick-ass job, morning drive in Detroit on the ticket, and he's kind enough to join us right now. John, how you been?
Hey, good afternoon. It's good to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. By the way, you look like $1 million these days in your home studio. You look like you lost a lot of weight. How much weight have you lost since your playing days?
Oh, shoot. Since my playing days, well, I put on a couple of after, so if I can include that, I'm down about 65 pounds in the last couple of years, so I feel better, and so I've got no complaints about my playing days, how my body feels now. Everybody's got aches and pains, and I'm excited to I've got to keep up with Stoney, my morning co-host, who is he's dropped a bunch of weight as well, so we got a little competition going.
I always wonder this with NFL offensive linemen, because I used to work with David Deal around here, and that's another guy that just lost a ridiculous amount of weight. Chris Snee as well. Is it just because you're not eating as much as you used to do is why you lose so much of the weight once the NFL days are over?
Well, I mean, that's part of it. I just don't have time. I've got 5 kids, and they're all doing something, so there's just a lack of time to actually put something down my mouth.
So you did more running around probably after your playing days, running around all your kids than during your playing days.
Yes, I'm in much better physical condition now than I was then. Sad to say.
John Jansen here with us. So give me kind of the scene in Detroit right now. Season ended in a positive way for the Lions, even though they didn't make the playoffs. The Lions fan, if you had to speak for the fan base right now, where's their confidence heading into this season?
Their confidence is high. It's as high as it's ever been. You're always going to have in Detroit, you're going to have a group of fans that are always going to doubt because of the history, the fact that you've only won one playoff game since 1957. And there's this faction that's going to say, hey, prove it. And that's fine. But there's a majority of the fans that are very excited about Dan Campbell, the direction of the franchise under Sheila Ford Hamp, and the fact that Brad Holmes has drafted very, very well over the past 3 years, starting to get more and more production out of those players as they continue to develop and grow. And now you're looking at this team going, hey, there's a good core of players to build around that are young, that are growing with this franchise, with this city. And it's the first time we had Rod Wood on, the team president, last week, and he said it is the first time that they know of, especially since they've been to Ford Field, but even at the Silverdome and before, where they have sold out of season tickets. Just imagine what that means in Detroit and the signal that sends to the team, to the franchise, that the fan base is behind them.
The positivity actually scares me, where everyone's being so positive about the Lions and just handing them the NFC North crown already, thinking the Vikings are going to be crap after winning 13 games last year, even though a lot of that was in some lucky, miraculous ways. I've been leaning that the Lions are a good team. They get like 8 or 9 wins this year, but they just come up short.
Oh, come on. They had 9 wins last year. How are they going to come up shorter than they did last year? Jared Goff at the end of last season was very productive. And the biggest change was, the defense was playing better. Kirby Joseph was getting some turnovers. Aiden Hutchinson grew up a lot last year, was getting more pressure. James Houston, same thing, putting pressure on quarterbacks. But offensively, Jared Goff protected the football. And he realized, I really think he came to a realization that he doesn't have to be the guy to go out there and make the big play. They're not asking him. At times, they may need him to go out there and win games, but they're not asking him to do that on a regular basis. They're asking him to be a game manager. And I think with the way that this division is shaping up, now there's a little worry about what's going on in Green Bay. They've got a very talented team. And if Jordan Love, he's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, but if he comes in and has used these last couple of years to develop, they're still going to be a challenge. I don't think Justin Fields and the Bears are ready, even though, 3 receptions through 2 touchdowns, it looked great in the preseason. I just don't think they're ready. And Minnesota, I don't think Kirk Cousins and that team, with as many close games as they had last year, I think luck is running out. So I think in the division, it's the Lions to lose. They're out there to go get it. And if you talk to this team, they're not the ones, it's the fan base that's buying in. And that's why they call us fanatics, right? We have no logical reason. We may have a number of different things that we could point to, But the team, when we talk to Frank Ragnow, when we talk to Jared Goff, when we talk to Hutch, we talk to all these guys, they readily admit, hey, we were 9-8 last year. We didn't win the division. We didn't make the playoffs. We haven't done anything yet. So those guys are extremely focused.
So you go in this division, it seems like from the way that you just described it, John Jansen, you have the Lions 1, the Packers 2, Vikings 3, Bears 4. Is that right?
Yeah. I think that's how most people would have it. But again, I don't care about most people. That's how I have it. That's how it's going to play out. I'm telling you right now.
Look at you becoming a shock jock now, John Jansen. You've improved a lot from when I first started talking about you. Now you're feeling yourself with the ratings, the paycheck in Detroit. Look at John Jansen now here on CBS Sports Radio.
Hey, both my teams, the Michigan Wolverines, coaches poll in the AP poll that just came out, they're number 2. They've got the only returning starting quarterback in the top couple of picks, and the Lions are an ascending team. It is a great time to be on sports talk radio in the Detroit and Southeast Michigan area. You know me. I love Michigan. I love Harbaugh. I think what the NCAA is doing is just absolutely ridiculous. Now they're going to punt this suspension. This is what I think is going to happen. If an NFL team offers Harbaugh a job at the end of the season, he's gone because it's the NCAA's fault. You know what? I think you're probably a frequent listener in the morning. Stoney and I have been talking about that all week because the last couple of years, whether it's been Denver last year, Minnesota the year before, there's been a number of teams that have kicked the tires on Jim Harbaugh. And if the NCAA isn't going to do anything right now, and Jim has said he's willing to talk about it when it's all said and done and give his side. But I think you're right. If the NCAA does something weird and ridiculous regarding this, then if he's got a chance to jump to the NFL, I would not be surprised to see him do that. Then what's the NCAA going to do? We're talking about a bleeping cheeseburger at the Brown Jug. I've been there at Ann Arbor and a few other things. It's a good cheeseburger. Yeah, it is a good cheeseburger. Big guys talking about cheeseburgers. Absolutely. Yeah. But over, what is this, 1998 now in the NCAA? Players can go make money through NIL, but the coach can't buy someone a cheeseburger? Well, I think it's deeper than that as well. I think and I haven't seen the notice of allegations. Nobody really has, but it seems like there is it was a timing issue more than it was, a cheeseburger or whatever the meal was. It's a timing issue of when they may have been on campus, if there was contact, because we know in 2020, everybody lost their mind. And, it was hard to follow the rules that the government was putting out, let alone the NCAA. Yeah, I think it's more so the NCAA. They're very petty, and it's more so they're annoyed that Jim supposedly wasn't forthcoming with it and wasn't honest with it, and it's not really the infractions, it's the lying part about it. Now the NCAA, it's going to be a big, swinging contest. Well, it will be, and we'll see how it all plays out. It's going to be time. It's not going to happen this year. Yeah. So, and if they were to self-impose some suspension this year, if Michigan were to do that, you look at the start of the schedule and it's, East Carolina. Cupcakes. There's 3 cupcakes, and then you start the Big Ten season off with Rutgers. So if you were to self-impose, the problem is next year, if they go to 6 games, they count 4 this year, 2 next year. That second game is Texas next year. Not such a cupcake anymore. No, not so much, especially with next year probably going to be Arch Manning getting onto the field. Wrapping up with John Jansen. So let me continue this conversation with the Wolverines. The last 2 years, they've taken an enormous step. They beat the snot out of Ohio State, which I know you love. They've won the Big Ten championship, but then blown out by Georgia, disappointing against TCU. I look at this team. They returned so many players. I know you want this to be their year, but why should you believe that they're going to find a way to hoist the College Football Playoff National Championship trophy? Well, this is the deepest, most talented team, most experienced team that Jim Harbaugh has had since he's been in Ann Arbor. You start with J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. You got a guy now who's been able to learn on the job last year. He's got some good experience. He's going to learn from some of those negative experiences that he and the rest of the team had against TCU. And then you look in the backfield with Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. Colston Loveland, there's a guy to keep an eye on at tight end. He's going to be an absolute stud. The offensive line goes 8-9 deep across the front, all with experience, defensive line and edge rushers. It's again, you could go too deep at almost every position. And when you go to linebacker, Junior Colson, Michael Barrett's in his 6th year, Ernest Hausman coming over from Nebraska. In the secondary, you got Rod Moore, Makari Page, Will Johnson, who is wearing the number 2 and is living up to that number, which is not easy to do. This is a very talented, fast, and experienced team. And here's why I think it's so important to have that. In prior years, if you had one key injury up front, if your center went down, or if your left guard went down, or if your middle linebacker went out, or your number 1 edge rusher went out, it affected how this team was going to approach Saturdays. This year, it's just next man up, and you're really not going to see much of a drop-off.
Wrapping up with John Jansen, I just want to get back to the Lions real quickly. You talk about your belief in Jared Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs, the 12th overall pick, even though I thought it was early, I believe he's going to have a monster season. Jamison Williams out the first 6 games because of the gambling suspension. You look around the rest of that offense, do you think Goff has enough around him for this year?
Well, we talk about that all the time. Did they Goff-proof the offense? And are they going to allow him to be that game manager? When you get Montgomery from Chicago in the backfield, you get Jahmyr Gibbs, you go get Sam Laporta and give him a quality tight end. I would have liked to have seen him catch his 4th down catch on Friday night, but hey, it's the preseason. It's time to learn. And this offensive line, a top 5 offensive line in the NFL, yeah, I think they've given him a lot of weapons. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has been a top 10 receiver
Phenomenal.
Last year. And this guy, I'm telling you, I've been out to training camp. There is no one in the NFL. There's a lot of guys that will work as hard, but there is nobody that is going to work harder and have more of a drive than Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Jamison Williams, he needs to step up, needs to be that number 12 overall pick, and he needs to get in the back pocket of Amon-Ra St. Brown and figure this thing out quickly so that when he comes back in week 7, he hits the ground running and he can be an asset to this team and not someone who's trying to develop.
For years, we would always say Keenan Allen is the most underrated wide receiver in the league. Now I think that's a fight between Amon-Ra St. Brown and then probably Terry McLaurin with another one of your former teams.
Yes, with new ownership. So new hope there as well.
Yeah, you got to be thrilled about that. I know you played with the now Commanders from 1999 to 2008. This is like the greatest gift that they can get. I don't even like Josh Harris that much, but it's anybody but Daniel Snyder is 2 thumbs up from me.
It's a step up, and it'll be interesting to see how they try and work the culture in the building, on the field, and just throughout the entire franchise.
Are you believing in that team entering this season? That's in the NFC. It's not that strong. You look at the Commanders. They have talent. Where's your belief level in the Commanders?
It's going to come down to Sam Howell. I mean, what type of quarterback is he going to be? Yeah, they've got some talent at receiver. You mentioned Terry McLaurin. They've got some talent on that offensive line. Defensive front-wise, if Chase Young can be healthy and get back to what he was supposed to be and what he was accomplishing as a rookie coming out of Ohio State, yeah, I think they could be a team that ekes into the playoff. With Dallas in the division, with the Giants in the division, it's going to be tough. The Eagles in the division, heck, they were in the. I can't believe I forgot the Eagles. Don't tell Stoney that one. But when you look at the division, it's going to be hard to win games in the division. They're going to have to look outside to those other games, and I don't know if they do or not, but it's really going to come down to what type of production, what type of consistency do they get from Sam Howell, and how much can he protect the football.
John Jansen does a great job on the ticket in Detroit, kicking ass, taking names in Morning Drive with Stoney and company. Also played for Washington and Detroit, and we know he's getting ready for his Wolverines coming up in a few weeks. John, appreciate the time as always.
Hey, thanks, Zach. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it. There he is, John Jansen, joining us on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. The Colts name Anthony Richardson a starter. What's the expectations for this year? And also, should the Sixers fire Daryl Morey? We'll get into those 2 topics next, and also the Casamigos shot of the day. But standing by with the latest CBS Sports Radio update is El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, well, the Colts aren't wasting any more time. Rookie Anthony Richardson will be under center in week 1. Indy announced the 4th overall pick from Florida as their starting quarterback.
It was just hearing the words, because you work for it. I didn't know when the timeline was going to be. I was just looking forward to week 1 and just being ready for the opportunity and getting thrown in the fire, hopefully. But, he told me, and I'm just like, like, wow, it really happened. So, I'm thankful. I'm blessed, and now I just got to keep working and just keep building on this opportunity.
Meanwhile, one day after the Jets brought in Dalvin Cook to bolster the backfield, add another weapon for Aaron Rodgers, Gang Green also welcomed back now Breece Hall as he was taken off the PUP list. But Robert Saleh, head coach, did stress they're going to take it slow.
If you ask him, he's ready to go now, and he's chomping at the bit, wants to get in there with his teammates. But to have him back out there in pads, and man, he looks freaking good. Just his size, kind of like Jermaine Johnson, and just the way they've kind of morphed their bodies, and he looks explosive, he looks powerful, and so we'll get him in, we'll ease him in, but right now it's just acclimation.
And at the Women's World Cup, Spain upended Sweden 2-1, reached their first World Cup final. They'll now await the winner between England and host country Australia. I'm Marco Belletti.
Hey, it's DA. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back in. It is Maggie and Perloff right here on CBS Sports Radio. Zach Gelb filling in, and it's time to get to the always highly anticipated Casamigos shot of the day. Quincy Enunwa joined us earlier and talked about the Jets' expectations for this upcoming season.
He shoots! It's tough to really make that type of prediction. I think ultimately I want to say that the Jets are very close to winning the Super Bowl. You think about last year, they had a top 10 defense in the league. They had an offense that was doing really well in all facets of the game before Breece Hall went down. Once they lost that run game, there was really kind of a disconnect on what their identity was. And so I think that you saw that throughout the rest of the year. So now they have a quarterback, they've got a run game, they've got an increased run game with Dalvin Cook. So it's hard to imagine that you have the defense with this offense here. Special teams unit is going to come back to where they once were. I don't see why they can't go to the Super Bowl this year.
So there you go. That's the shot of the day, and it's brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos is brought to you by those who drink it. So we all know Nick Wilson. He used to work at WFNZ, now works at the Fan in Cleveland, does afternoon drive along with Dustin Fox. So Samter put out one of my takes about the Jets where if their offensive line holds up, I'm now calling the Jets a Super Bowl contender. So Nick Wilson tweets, of course, New York radio guy says the Jets are going to be this great team. And I like Nick. Nick is a friend. But I responded to Nick like, you know me. Dummy, I'm a Patriot fan. I'm the last person to gas up and hype up the Jets, Jets. But you look at this team, quarterback loaded, defense loaded, running backs loaded, and they have the reigning offensive and defensive rookies of the year. As long as their offensive line holds up, they'll be a really damn good team. Where we know when you look at the Super Bowl contenders, Chiefs, Bengals, Eagles, 49ers, those four teams, they're probably the four first teams that come to mind in terms of when asking who's Super Bowl contenders. Then you got the Bills and the Jets, and, if Tua could stay healthy, I'll even throw the Dolphins in that mix. One of those teams in the AFC East are going to be a Super Bowl contender this year. So I don't think it's that crazy. And I was holding off on it for a while. But that offensive line is the biggest key. So I was surprised that my buddy Nick Wilson started throwing some elbows, some big guy elbows at yours truly. Especially when Nick knows that I'm a Patriot fan. He's had me on his show before to talk about the Pats. So don't just chalk that up. Don't be a lazy host. And I love Nick Wilson. But don't be a lazy host and go, oh, this is just a New Yorker. He must be a Jet fan. When you know I'm not a Jet fan. Anyway, Nick, I'll give you a call later. We'll make up. We will kiss through the phone and make up, and every little thing's going to be all right. Samter, you all right? You good?
I don't know how you kiss through a phone, but it doesn't sound pleasant.
Oh, I'm not going to actually kiss him in person. I wouldn't want to kiss Nick Wilson. It would be just through the phone. Like you smooch and you make up. You never had those conversations through the phone where you've had to, through the phone, basically just go, hey, it's all good. We're in a good spot. It's definitely you. It's not me. And every little thing's going to be all right.
Not when somebody is trying to confuse me as a Patriots fan for a Jets fan, because Patriots suck.
That's fine. You've just been a tortured soul for 20 years, Samter. And the Patriots will send a rent check for all the space that they have in your head. You know, you hating the Patriots as much as you do is like this Weedo in the chat, Brian, who can't stand me all the time. But all he does is talk about me every time I fill in. I'll send the rent check to Brian as well. I'm just messing with Brian. I kind of like Brian, but then I also can't stand him. You know, it just depends on what moment of the day that we are on. But anyway, two more things that I want to get to before we get on out of here and call it a day on this Tuesday edition of Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio. Let's go about the Colts naming Anthony Richardson as a starter. The least surprising thing ever that Anthony Richardson is going to be the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. I know Jonathan Taylor is now back in the building, but when is he going to play, and when is he going to be healthy from this lingering ankle injury? Because without Jonathan Taylor for this upcoming season, the Colts are going to be bad anyway, but that takes a big friend away when you have a young quarterback in Anthony Richardson. And remember, Shane Steichen comes from the Chargers and the Eagles. So he dealt with the mobility of Herbert, and then it just going the total different level with what Jalen Hurts is able to do in a quick amount of time. So there is some, even though I don't know what Shane Steichen's going to be as a head coach, there is a history with Steichen as an offensive coordinator where he's been able to develop, and who knows how much of a role he had in that, but he was the OC, but where he gets praised for the development of a Justin Herbert and then also a Jalen Hurts. But for Richardson, I look at that Colts team, that offensive line is heavily compensated, but with that being said, they were god-awful last year. And they didn't really do much in their first preseason game to make you believe in the big boys up front. And you look at the rest of that roster, like Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., solid, could be better. And he had a good playoff game against Buffalo a few years ago. But for Anthony Richardson, it's all good. If Taylor isn't fully bought in, it's going to be on the shoulder and the legs of Anthony Richardson. And if I'm a Colt fan, you don't really evaluate this year wins and losses because you're going to be a bad football team. You don't really have that much on paper. But you're also going to be putting the ball in Richardson's hands so many times, and then he's going to be taking a lot of hits because of the mobile style of play. He needs to show it. And that's the biggest thing. I need to walk away at the end of the season if I'm a Colts fan, not saying, this is definitely the guy, this guy's awesome, he did X, Y, and Z, and he was phenomenal. But he's just got to show enough signs that he could be the guy. Because Richardson is one of those guys that he was so highly touted based off things that we haven't seen him do yet, where it's all potential with Anthony Richardson. He had 2 really good games last year at Florida. I got to see some consistency from Anthony Richardson. He's got to start to show the signs early on that this could be the guy. Because you know how important it is, especially in the NFL, rookie contracts and taking advantage of that rookie contract. And the Colts have a lot of roster reconstruction they need to do. And we'll see if they're going to be able to do that. But we've seen guys quickly get into the league, and a lot of them have been into better situations and have dominated in the NFL. So not a surprise that Anthony Richardson is a starting quarterback. He should be. If you don't have someone in the roster that is definitely of starting caliber, and I think we all like Gardner Minshew, but he's not someone that's going to prevent and find a way to provide a speed bump for Anthony Richardson to get that QB1 tag. So if you don't have that guy, I am all in on throwing Anthony Richardson in and seeing what he could do in the NFL. And there's intrigue around him because he gets hyped up as one of those video game type of quarterbacks where he's going to be lethal on the ground and has the ability to be lethal through the air. I just got to see it because I keep on hearing about it, but I didn't see it last year at Florida. There's going to be major fantasy implications too with Anthony Richardson. A lot of people are saying that he could be a top 10 fantasy quarterback for this upcoming season. And then finally, I know we touched a lot of this yesterday when we were discussing the whole Sixers situation with how much of a petulant fraud James Harden is, where it's everyone's fault but James Harden. And James Harden goes through this constant cycle of he has a good regular season. I know he played better in the postseason this year, but still was a no-show at the end of that series up against the Celtics. We know he loves to go to a strip club. We know he loves to go to buffets. And then he puts on extra weight. He's out of shape. And then he wants out. And it's never his fault. Never, ever James Harden's fault. So James Harden, over the weekend, he finds out that the Sixers, they're not going to trade him. They don't have a deal that's going to work. And they're not just going to trade him just for the sake of trading him. And then he's in China and he goes, Daryl Morey, who all Daryl Morey has done is loved on James Harden for so many years and give him so many opportunities. Daryl Morey's a liar, and I'll never play for Daryl Morey again. Notice he didn't say I'll never play for the Sixers again. I'll never play for Daryl Morey again. We already know that James Harden did not like Doc Rivers, and Daryl Morey got rid of Doc Rivers. Now is Josh Harris, who's the new owner of the Commanders, and he also owns the Devils and the Sixers. Is Josh Harris going to step in and say, Daryl, thanks for your service? And this is something I don't like Daryl Morey. I think Daryl Morey is an overrated executive, but I actually think he's in the right here. But are the Sixers going to step in and say, Daryl, you're gone now? Because we need to keep James Harden, because if we lose James Harden, or if James Harden is continuing to be a malcontent and he doesn't want to stay here, and he's being a royal pain in the ass, how far away are you from then Joel Embiid, even though he's under contract for 3 more years, inevitably requesting a trade? So that's just something that I'll float out there and something to monitor. I don't think Daryl Morey's going to get fired, but how many times do you see a player, and James Harden has been a star player in this league, even though he's the definition of a really good regular season player, and then come postseason time, he stinks. He is just a bad postseason player, and he's not a championship player, even though he'll be in the Hall of Fame. But how many times have you seen a player put up a big fight, put up a big fuss, and then the next thing you know, the person they're complaining about is out? It already happened this offseason with Doc Rivers. And you can make a case that Doc Rivers deserved to lose his job, but that was the scapegoat. And Daryl Morey then saw James Harden opt in, and whatever was said behind the scenes, James Harden opted in. So James, either suck it up and play for Philly with Daryl Morey there, or don't play. To me, I don't think this should be a situation where the Sixers fired Daryl Morey, but we've seen things similarly happen before. And that Embiid factor is always there, because once Embiid requests a trade, even though the Sixers were a good team last year, but they never looked like a championship team, once Embiid requests a trade, then the process is totally done and over with, and any lingering things from the process just fade away, and you got to start all back over. All righty, that is Maggie and Perloff on this Tuesday edition on CBS Sports Radio. Big thanks to Marco Belletti, Michael Samter, Stuart Kovacs as well, everyone on the YouTube chat, the Weedos and the Purple Drinkers, as you're called, Quincy Enunwa for joining us, and also John Jansen as well. JR will be in this time slot tomorrow. I'll be back on Thursday, coming off the big Bruce Springsteen show in Philadelphia, and then Amy will be here on Friday. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. Enjoy your Wednesday. I'll talk to you Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS Sports Radio. We out. Bye-bye.